Dan Spencer. I'll be speaking to a brave sexual abuse survivor still fighting for those who don't have a voice, and yes, the noise of Hamza Youssef as he falls off a little tricycle or whatever he's on. Is Hamza Youssef the match in the powder barrel for the SNP and Scottish independence? And later, I'll speak to a brave wheelchair-bound veteran looking to climb Mount Snowdon this year. And well, what happens next? But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour. Up to 50 migrants were rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured this exclusive video of the migrant arrivals. The small boat ran aground this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is believed to have been injured. The incident comes as GB News can reveal the numbers crossing illegally from France have now passed 7,000 for the year so far. At least 5 small boats have made it to UK waters so far today, carrying more than 250 migrants. Hamza Youssef is said to be asking leaders of other parties to find common ground with him as he invites them to talks at his official residence to see how they can work with his minority government. The Scottish First Minister says he will not resign as leader ahead of a crucial test of his leadership next week and is now reportedly attempting to build bridges with other political leaders at Holyrood. Mr Youssef has told reporters it would be a poor choice for the Scottish Greens to back the motion of no confidence in him. He hopes to hold separate meetings with each group at Bute House in Edinburgh to discuss how they can contribute constructively. Letters were reportedly sent to the Scottish Conservatives, Scottish Labour, the Scottish Greens and the Alba Party last night. This all comes after the collapse of the SNP's power-sharing deal with the Greens on Thursday. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters are marching in central London calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The pro-Palestine protest group Palestine Solidarity Campaign says the event is in response to Israel's brutal attack on Gaza. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn was among those holding banners at the front of the crowd. The march passed a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall peacefully. Meanwhile, a demonstration organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was also due to take place today, but that was cancelled yesterday as organisers said the safety of Jews was at risk following threats made. More than 20 sexual predators have been jailed for exploiting young girls in West Yorkshire involving abuse described as abhorrent in the extreme. The 24 men have been jailed for a total of 346 years following prosecutions by Operation Torway, which is West Yorkshire Police's investigation into the rape, sexual abuse and trafficking of 8 girls between 1999 and 2012. 4 of the men convicted in this series of trials received sentences of more than 20 years. A British tourist is in intensive care after being attacked by a shark on a Caribbean island. The 64-year-old is receiving critical care after serious injuries to his left arm, his left leg and stomach, according to a local official. He's said to be stable and doing well. The attack happened at Turtle Beach along Great Corlin Bay in Trinidad and Tobago yesterday morning. Several beaches along the northwestern coast of the island have now been closed. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the victim's family. And a gold pocket watch that was recovered from the body of the richest man on the Titanic will be auctioned today in Wiltshire. It could fetch £150,000. Businessman John Jacob Astor, who was 47, went down with the ship in 1912 after seeing his wife Madeline onto a lifeboat. Rather than try his own luck with another lifeboat, the impeccably dressed businessman, a prominent member of the wealthy Astor family, was last seen smoking a cigarette and chatting with a fellow passenger. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen, or you can go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's just coming up to 6 minutes after 3 o'clock, and it's time to muck the week. And what a busy one it's been. Humza useless. I want to laugh. He's actually worse than everything in Westminster. We should have known that we were in for a rough ride. Yeah, that's him falling off a scooter. That's just as embarrassing as the time when I was jumping up and down for a photo shoot and my big curly wig that I was wearing got caught in one of the spokes and the lighting umbrella. Remember this, the white speech?
That 99% of the meetings I go to, I'm the only non-white person in the room. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white. That is...
Well, what did he expect in a 95% white country? He's had a litany of failures, starting with deciding to continue with Nicola Sturgeon's gender recognition reform bill, which was the catalyst for her departure. Under it, anyone from age 16 can legally change their sex without any medical supervision. No one would possibly take advantage of that. Surely not. Oh, it will never happen. Double rapist Isla Bryson, a.k.a. Adam Graham, in a woman's prison. Ridiculous. Humza's hate crime bill has been a disaster that saw him being reported as dishing out the most hate, and this wonderful woman, Morag, a 75-year-old, being arrested.
Took me to Kilmarnock police station, which is about 25 minutes away, and sorry, Nan.
That's all right, Morag. That must have been so traumatising. And now he's ditched the relationship with the Greens. His political career literally rests in the balance of Alex Salmond. And with Scotland's drug deaths being worst in Europe alongside problems with education, housing and poverty, useless just rolls off the tongue where Humza is concerned. In other news, Rwanda is on everyone's lips. It seems the French are stepping up after 5 people died, one of whom was a 7-year-old girl, when the people smugglers' boat that she was travelling in was effectively hijacked by other migrants. The French can no longer sit by and just allow people to leave the UK, leave for the UK. And this BBC Question Time clip went viral.
No, I think there's an exclusion on people from Rwanda being sent to Rwanda.
They're not from Rwanda, they're from Congo.
They're from Congo.
And they're supposedly warring these people from Rwanda. Are they then going to be sent to Rwanda if they came here on a crossing?
From
Congo? Yeah.
Would people be sent from... Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Definitely. So you're saying if they come from a war zone in Congo, would they then be sent to Rwanda?
It's quite simple. Stay in the safety of France, then. I wrote a piece about it in the Daily Mail. The objection to Rwanda, in my view, was bordering on racism. Plus, this week, horses bolted and no one could shut the door as these most beautiful creatures went on a rampage through London after being spooked by a loud bang. It actually highlighted the plight of these poor animals, who it would appear are not housed in the best of conditions. Why do we even need to keep them for this? We've got tanks and AI. We got a gorgeous picture of Prince Louis as well. He turned 6 this week. It's such a wonderful age, I know, because I have a 6-year-old. They're very, very cute. And meanwhile, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, became the first member of the royal family appointed to the Order of the Companions of Honour. She was honoured by the King for her outstanding public service. I think Meghan is still fumbling around with some jam somewhere. And the King has announced 2 dates which will see him back in action. His doctors appear pleased with his progress. It's been a mucky old week. So coming up, we'll be making light of this week's top stories in Muck the Week. Then at 3:20, it's the roundtable discussion. Are the Lords racist for insisting that Rwanda isn't a safe country? Obviously not all of them, but they were saying that it wasn't. Then at 3:35, imagine having a vaccine for cancer. Dr. Rennie Hundenkamp will be live to discuss the latest medical breakthrough, which is could be a real hope for a cure for cancer. Then joining me to shine a light in the political hot seat today is a brave woman turned campaigner who went went viral for going public about her sexual abuse as a child. Emma Jane Taylor is my political spotlight at 3:45. Now, that's all coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Go to gbnews.com/your say or tweet me at GBNews. Welcome aboard. If you just tuned in, it's just coming up to 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still loads more to come here in this hour. But joining me to muck the week, God, they're very high up. Put your chairs down a bit. I'm just tall. It's Diane Spencer and Ben Leo. Look at that, two of them.
Sorry, so hang on, should we try and do a synchronised lower?
3, 2, 1, and
wait.
lower.
Wait.
Needs to be
and lower. Oh, this is not good. Right. So listen, I talked about Humza Yousaf. Humza Yousaf, he fell off that scooter. He's just making a mess of everything, isn't he?
He's my favourite clown in the Scottish Parliament. I mean, considering all the Scottish comedy acts we have, like Frankie Boyle, he's up there with the top of them right now. You've got to admit, it's quite funny.
It's a good achievement, but there was a great piece in the Times this morning saying, look, the word on the street in Holyrood is Humza Yousaf, he's a perfectly nice guy, but he's just intellectually not there, and he hasn't got the gravitas or the presence to be, you know, a decent Scottish First Minister. And it's not just this situation with the Greens that's failed him. This goes back to his Gender Recognition Act.
Terrible.
It goes back to Westminster torpedo, by the way. Then we had the Hate Crime Act, another one of his, you know, flag-flying policies, which, you know, J.K. Rowling absolutely destroyed within hours of it going live by listing off all those trans sexual offenders and saying, come on then, police, come and get me. They didn't do it, which rendered the whole thing, you know, a laughingstock. And then, of course, this row back with the net zero. And do you know what Humza Yousaf did in the days after Rishi Sunak announcing the UK would be watering down its net zero policies? He did a video, the virtuous man he is, looked down the barrel of the camera and said, "This is unforgivable. You are sentencing the Earth to climate doom." And he does the same thing. He's just a massive hypocrite, and he's useless.
I mean, you know, make sure that you get off the fence at some point. I think it's really funny that he's written, like, secret letters to, well, they're not secret because we know about them, to all the other parties, and they're saying, so, guys, I guess you're all going to agree with me now, right? Look, I've ditched the Greens. It's like you can't pin all of the SNP's failings on the coalition with the Greens. And I feel like he's trying to do that, which is why I feel he's drawn together this secret cabal where he's going to sort of try and bribe them. But I think they can see him coming a mile away.
He's just not very good, is he? I mean, I think he's just not very clever, which is quite sad, but he has exposed himself to be a bit daft. What about Chris Philp? Now, I don't know whether you saw it, Diane, but the...
Yes.
I mean, what do you think? Look, I actually feel that he was slightly trapped because the question was worded in a very tricky way. So, and I could see how he slightly misunderstood and couldn't see what was going on.
I could see how he misunderstood it. I think he did put his, like, foot in his own face when he did say out loud on television, they are two separate countries, right? I was like, no, sweetie, shh, you keep that thought to your inside voice. You don't say that one out loud.
No, I felt like that was rhetorical, though. I thought he was saying that they...
Clearly, it was a bit of a gaffe, but I think he was just thinking out loud in his head, and he's kind of... I don't think he was asking a genuine question. No. They're two separate countries, right? I think he's just... It's kind of how you do in conversation. I can't give an example, but...
I know what you mean.
But it's like a filler in a conversation where you're saying, there's two different countries, right? And, of course, people on the left will jump on that and make out he's some sort of thicko. As if you've got a government minister of his standard who doesn't know that the Congo and Rwanda are two different countries. I mean... But
it was the way they were attacking him, I think, that he was confused, because sometimes when people do that, you then second-guess yourself. Now, listen, I'm not defending him. I thought that his performance wasn't great. I could have done... We would have all done a better job than that. But the point was, I just don't really like the way they jumped on top of it, because they should be more concerned about people dying crossing the channel, which was part of the story the guy was telling, but nobody was outraged at that at all.
Well, it's interesting. I think they've taken his gaffe to sort of pull focus away from the argument. And instead of sort of looking at the arguments that were being put forward, they're saying, look at this guy, he's really thick, the rest of the policy can't possibly work. Like you say, it's maybe a bit of a smokescreen. I still think that it was... I still think you are being very generous.
No. He gave them an open goal.
Yeah,
he made an error. He gave them an open goal, and they blasted it in. And yeah, so,
they
so
scored
should.
a hat-trick, why not? And what about the horses on the rampage? I felt sorry for them. They're so beautiful. And the little black one and the white one, stunning.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, it would have been a beautiful, epic scene had not the white horse hit a bus. I mean, like, all the footage that we've had to kind of piece it together from all the different people witnessing it. I mean, if we could put some epic music to it, I'd kind of enjoy the footage until the white horse got injured.
We've not had an update, have we, on the horses situation?
Yeah, the white one's in a bit of trouble.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the latest?
Well, as far as I hear, he's not doing too well. The others are OK by the looks of it.
I love horses. Some people online were saying it was like... apparently there's some biblical reference to it about the last days of the... or the start of the apocalypse or something.
What?
Yeah.
Funny that, though, if you did nick something in London and run around, there still wouldn't be as much footage as there was of that. Do you know what I mean? There's cameras everywhere. It's over there, it's over there, it's over there. Literally, the whole thing's cameraed up. And we don't really need horses in that way. I think it's unfair.
No, they enjoy it. I love horses.
No, they don't.
I'm a big
Apparently
horse racing fan. What, those horses?
Apparently not.
Yes, they are.
They're putting small little things and not know.
No, of course
they are. That's what people are talking about. I've been listening. You're not listening.
They have to go to the horse gym. They have to work out, like, way more than you do so that they can be big, butch police army horses.
No, we don't need them to do that. We've got AI and drones. Why do we need horses? And we've got a couple of things left. Royal news. Prince Louis, his picture. Very cute, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a little sweetheart, and it was interesting to see why wouldn't he be a sweetheart?
I mean, come on.
Because he's royal.
You've got to admit, that kid is... I mean, he's not going to be necessarily the easiest kid to get on with, is he?
Why? You don't know him.
He might be quite cantankerous.
I don't know him. I'm just making a little guess from his cheeky little face that he looks a handful to me.
He looks gorgeous. And then
I'm not sure.
Princess Kate finally was awarded the what was it? The Order of the
Garter.
No.
Yeah, that was a nice nod from King Charles to basically say thank you to Kate, the Queen Consort, Camilla, and Prince William for sort of stepping in whilst he was dealing with his health troubles. The interesting thing about that picture of Louis was, of course, it was unedited.
I know.
He only had 5 fingers. Isn't that amazing?
Listen, Dan, when are you back? Are you back on tonight?
Oh, gosh, I'll probably be on that your wonderful programme, the Saturday 5. I love that programme, and they let me bring props. It's nuts.
Wonderful. And also, Ben, are you doing Saturday 5 today?
Saturday 5 tonight, yeah, it's going to be a really good show. It's Albie's off, so the Lib Dem in disguise has gone for tonight. So it's me...
He's a Conservative in disguise.
Me, Benjamin, Charlie Rowley, Darren Grimes, of course, and Chloe Dobbs.
Wonderful.
Oh, exciting.
Well, listen, stay tuned for the Saturday 5 after my show. That's at 6 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, game-changing vaccines, instilling hope that could we have found a cure for cancer. Next, do I smell a whiff of racism coming from the House of Lords? This is GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Offline and overlooked. That's what Age UK say millions of British pensioners are. Why? Because they cannot or won't access the internet. It's leading to digital exclusion. So the charities campaigning for public services like banks, utilities and even the NHS to maintain a more human approach.
Everything's online. People assume you've got a smartphone with a mobile number and an email, and without that you don't exist in this world anymore. We've got to try and get the government to see that it's so important to make people feel that they belong, because there's a feeling that the older generation just feel that they're forgotten, they're in the way, and we already know that anyway, but it's just another reason for them to feel that they're not wanted. They'll just accept it and they'll say, well, that's it, I can't do it anymore. And that's it, whereas other people would be really kicking and screaming. So we need to be the voice for older people.
Despite digital technology playing an increasing role in our lives, around 1 in 5 over 65s in the UK don't use the internet. Thornycroft Centre in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, provides a space for this age group to socialise and get help to go online.
I'm not that good with mobiles, so when you mention anything about online, I ain't a clue what you're talking about.
The closure of thousands of banks is also detrimental to the older generation.
A lot of our members what come, they tend to use cash. They don't like to use bank cards. I think a lot of it's trust or the lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works. I think they're very vulnerable as well with online. It's really important that they're aware how to use it and how to use it safely.
So, in an online era, it's still crucial for many to have an offline option.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday, the 2nd of May,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday, the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 21 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. It's time now for this week's hot topic and my roundtable discussion. We don't have a roundtable, as you know, but that's fine. It's just to suspend the air of disbelief. But this week, the Lords have been patronising and bordering on racism. Now, those are the words of Deputy Foreign Secretary Andrew Mitchell, not mine. And Parliament had been in a deadlock for weeks over the Rwanda bill, with peers deeming the country unsafe. The Rwanda bill has now become law, but this doesn't mean that we can't reflect on the fact that if Rwanda were a British white nation or British overseas territory that the government intended to send small boats to, would the peers have spoken about Rwanda in such a derogatory way? Well, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined now by former MP for Rochdale Simon Danczuk and his wife Coco Danczuk. So thank you very much for joining me. Really good to talk to you both. Thank you for coming in. Coco, you are from Rwanda.
Yes, I'm from Rwanda.
You're listening to a lot of the stuff that's been said about it.
Yes, a lot.
What are your thoughts on it?
I think they are just racist. They are just being prejudiced. Because it's just an African country, and then they believe what they believe. They want us to run the country as they want us to run. You know, not just like have, be able as a country to set up the rules and then run the country up, Yeah.
Because, Simon, if you look at the state of London, for example, and you've got Mayor Khan saying all sorts of things, you can't really walk around London with a really expensive watch. People have been warned about it, and this is something that the international community are talking about. Yeah. In many respects, Rwanda is safer than London.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is ironic that people on the left in British politics, as Coco says, are being racist about Rwanda. They're running things in central London and making a mess of it. It's very dangerous in central London, and comparisons between Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, and central London show that it's much safer in Kigali. So people on the left being prejudiced, criticising Rwanda, the vast majority have never been there, have no understanding of the country. That's the reality. It's just political point scoring. That's the reality of it. And they don't want this. They don't want this policy to work because the reality is they support open borders. That's the reality of the political situation. Yeah, absolutely. Labour have said that they will, even if this policy is successful, they will repeal it. What's the logic in that? We have far too many illegal immigrants coming into Britain, and yet Labour would repeal a policy if it's found to be working. Why would they do that unless they supported open borders?
Or unless they've got an alternative, which I'm not hearing much from. And also, a third country will always need to be part of the equation anyway, right? Because we don't have room in this country. And also, if people don't have anywhere to go, or we don't know where they are from, and they want to claim asylum and their asylum claim fails, then they'll need to go somewhere. Now, Coco, in terms of Rwanda, and talk to me about what it was like when you were living there, because I know you're back in the UK now. What was it like when you were living there? I mean, was there lots of violent crime, and how has the country recovered since the genocide 3 decades ago?
I mean, that's the other thing, that it's 30 years ago now. The Rwanda has completely changed. It's economic developing, and I think the country is the way the country is now it speaks itself. And then I grew up there, my family is still there, I have my business there, and the whole country is very beautiful, it's very safe, no crime, they take zero tolerance on crime. There is no corruption there, there's gender balance. So what else people do they want?
Well, exactly, because, I mean, if you take...
It's a very beautiful country.
I mean, it's famous for its gorillas, and it's they say it's the jewel of Africa, and it's a very progressive, moving forward country. And I'm wondering what the actual legal aspects of it were and why the Lords felt that they should continue to sort of disrupt it. So I'd like to bring in specialist immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson.
Hi, Nana.
Ivan, thank you so much for joining me. Now, Ivan, the Rwanda bill has finally passed. My question is, won't we end up with the same legal challenges as we did before it anyway? And so we'll be back to square one. Is there any chance, is it likely to ever actually happen? Will people ever be sent there?
Well, look, the bill itself, it actually removes the Section 2 and Section 3 of the Human Rights Act. That's the first thing. So it disapplies the sections of the Human Rights Act in which we have to, in which European law and the case law of the European Court of Human Rights is directly effective into our domestic legislation. So what the government have done is, with a backdoor, got rid of the ECHR rules. But can I just come back on the issue about is Rwanda a safe country? It's irrelevant. The issue of whether Rwanda is a safe country is not what the Supreme Court judgment said. I bet I'll be surprised. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but has Simon read the Supreme Court judgment?
Simon?
No, I haven't read it in detail, no. But it doesn't apply now because the new legislation dismisses that. They have a partnership between Rwanda and Britain that says we will not pass refugees on to a third country. So that sorts out the Supreme Court ruling, in actual fact.
Well, let me tell you about the Supreme Court ruling about is Rwanda a safe country. It's irrelevant. It's not whether you can have a nice holiday in Rwanda, what the crime rate in Rwanda is. We don't, frankly, not interested in that. What the Supreme Court said in paragraph 149 was the policy of sending people to Rwanda is unlawful. That's what the Supreme Court said. And the reason it said that was twofold. One was the principle of non-refoulement. That's the first thing. That they can't take guarantees from a dictator like Paul Kagame and his dictator government, or whether they're going to refoul people to elsewhere. That's the first point. The second point was that Rwanda doesn't have the administration, the systems in place to even consider asylum applications. I'd love to do a test on the Rwandan civil service on the refugee convention and see how they get on with that. Because
so how come the UN then?
Get rid of people,
but Ivan,
out of our hair. You have to consider their asylum applications properly in accordance with the law. Now, Supreme Court said they're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah, but Ivan, the thing that the Lords keep coming back on, first of all, is the thing about the Afghan refugees. They were worried that there wasn't any provision for them, but there already is anyway. But they were concerned about that because they didn't want the Afghan refugees to be sent to Rwanda. But the other point that they came back to was definitely about Rwanda being a safe country. That was definitely, those were the two issues that they had.
This is what I'm trying to say. People don't really understand the judgments of the courts. And this is a problem. It's not a question of, is it a safe country? What the Supreme Court said, the policy of sending people to Rwanda, that's unlawful. Because principle of non-refoulement. That's what's unlawful. Now, can I just say about the interim ruling, you're going to get applications in the European courts, injunction applications, interim rulings, Rule 39 applications, they're no doubt going to go in. Now, they've disapplied Section 2 and 3 of the Human Rights Act, the bill. I mean, I've never seen a government ever do that before. They've even said it doesn't comply with the obligations under the European Convention. And then you're going to get the Secretary of State's going to have to make a decision to overrule the interim 39 judgments. I mean, you're basically breaching international law.
Well, can I get Simon?
Ivan keeps going on about the Supreme Court decision. That's been overruled now by Parliament. And it's Parliament that determines the law in this country, not lawyers and judges. And that's why Ivan and other lawyers are now crying into their tea, because the power that they once had has been taken away from them. And it's government, politicians, quite rightly, people in Parliament who are making the final decision on this issue, and we will now see illegal immigrants sent to Rwanda once and finally, and lawyers can stop interfering in our in our parliamentary system. That's the reality, and that's why he's upset about it.
No, I'm not upset. Sunak's saying black is white and white is black. So as a human being, I've got to accept that because he's got a majority in the House of Commons. No, human rights laws, Parliament does not have a will to override fundamental human rights laws. It doesn't.
But that would be fine.
Universality in them. You cannot. No
Ivan,
government
but let's be honest.
can override human rights laws.
But let's be honest, Ivan. The UN used Rwanda as a safe place for people to be sent there.
Not true.
Well, they do, don't they?
So there's educate you on that point.
They
Let
do.
me educate you on that point.
They do.
Yes, the UN sent people to Rwanda. Do you know who they send? People who voluntarily go there.
Yeah.
You see, if you want to voluntarily go to Rwanda,
but the fact is they do still. But Ivan, sorry, we're running out of time. It's been really good to talk to you. But the bottom line is they do still go there, though. And so Rwanda, in my view, is just as good as anywhere else. Ivan Sampson, thank you very much. Coco Danchuk and Simon Danchuk, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right, so what do you think? Cracky, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio coming up. But we'll be discussing whether Rwanda is in fact a safe country. And I've got my monologue on the way on this.
Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I'll be telling you why I think MP Chris Philp was misunderstood in many ways. But first, here are your latest news headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Nana. 3:31, our top stories. Up to 50 migrants have been rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured this exclusive footage of the migrant arrivals. The incident happened this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is thought to be injured. At least 5 small boats have made it to UK waters so far today, carrying more than 250 migrants. GB News can reveal the number of people crossing illegally from France this year has now passed 7,000. Humza Yousaf is asking leaders of rival parties to find common ground with the SNP as his leadership hangs in the balance. He's inviting them to talks at his official residence to see how they can work with his minority government. Letters were reportedly sent to the Scottish Conservatives, Scottish Labour and Scottish Greens and the Alba Party last night. The Scottish First Minister says he will not resign ahead of a crunch vote on his leadership next week. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters have been marching in central London, calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The pro-Palestine protest group Palestine Solidarity Campaign says the event is in response to Israel's brutal attack. The march passed a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall peacefully. Meanwhile, a demonstration organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was cancelled as organisers said the safety of Jews was at risk. And a British tourist is in intensive care after being attacked by a shark in the Caribbean yesterday morning. The 64-year-old is said to be stable despite serious injuries to his left arm, his left leg and his stomach. The attack happened at Turtle Beach along Great Courland Bay in Trinidad and Tobago. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the victim's family. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Nana.
Thank you, Ray. Still to come, Emma Jane Taylor will be in the political hot seat to shine a light on sexual abuse in my political spotlight. But next, Dr. Rennie Hundenkamp with the latest medical breakthrough, a potential cancer vaccine. Don't go anywhere.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Organisations, plural, because there's loads of people doing this. The organisations are charging schools to be part of this odd league table about who's trying to outdo who when it comes to who is more trans-inclusive with the kids than the next person. There's something makes me uneasy about this.
Supposing a child comes home and says, you think, oh, I've done well today. He said, well, how have you done? He said, well, I was #1 painter, or I was #1 reader. No, I wasn't. I was made LGBT champion. This is a 4- and 5-year-old. Look, I can understand this, actually, as we develop into the secondary school. I can understand more debates taking place. I cannot understand why we have to thrust it at young children. And I think if you ask the parents, they'd be hostile to it. And what about the role the teacher has to play in all this?
Society has been one way, the pendulum is swinging the other way, and they're pushing it very far in order to kind of proliferate change. And this is probably the toughest period in that evolutionary process, because the LGBTQ plus community is saying that you've got to really rage against the machine to get people to listen. Because put it like this now, even this conversation, the whole country is listening, the whole world is listening. These are the kinds of eyeballs and ears they haven't had before. And there's going to be friction. There's going to be a locking of heads in the process to getting to a point where you establish a new equilibrium where they feel more incorporated. Like I've said, the greatest force of allies that the LGBTQ plus community has always had is heterosexual women. What you're moving towards now is doing things that is beginning to turn them from allies into people who feel that, oh, for you to thrive, I'm being deprived, and that's a problem. When they realise you're alienating allies, they will understand you've got to recalibrate to have that kind of understanding between both parties.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 38 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. This is GB News. Don't forget, you can also download the GB News app. It's completely free. But now, the world's first personalised mRNA cancer jab for melanoma, which also has the potential to stop lung, bladder and kidney cancer. It's being tested in British patients, and melanoma, which is a type of skin cancer that can spread to other parts of the body and affects around about 132,000 people a year globally. Now, experts have reportedly held its game-changing potential to permanently cure certain types of cancer. So joining me now to discuss this exciting news is the world-renowned doctor and TV presenter, Dr. Rennie Hundenkamp. Do you like that?
That's a very grand intro, exactly.
Are you?
I think people would argue with that.
Well, if you're in more than one country, you can say world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is this as big as it sounds?
I think it potentially is. I mean, it's very early days. So basically, they've discovered that if they use the same technology that they use for COVID, and they use some mRNA, which is a messenger part of DNA, they take your particular cancer, they biopsy it, they take some of the protein on your cancer and they put it back into your cells, and they tell your cells to make that protein. The idea is that your body then makes antibodies against it. It gets the memory cells, the T cells, the ones we heard about lots in COVID. And so then, after you've been treated for your cancer, if any of those cells are still floating around, or if any of them start to come back and multiply, your own immune system will recognise them from that vaccine and kill it. Now, melanoma is a hideous cancer, and if you get recurrence from any cancer, really, but especially from melanoma, you're going to die. You know, it's going to kill you. It's not nice. So to have something that might stop that happening, I think is game-changing. I think it will change the way that we develop many, many cancer treatments. It's very early days. We're years away from seeing this in practice. They've not even recruited patients yet onto the trial. But in mice, it stopped the cancer recurring in 50% of cases. Now, 50% is better than 0% or 1%. So, I think that's really, really encouraging. I think there are a couple of things that we're going to need to know as time goes forward. I want to know that the mRNA technology is completely safe. And I think that we need some more long-term data, which will obviously come with these studies, to know that interfering with the DNA and RNA in our cells is actually potentially
But we
safe.
did it with COVID.
We did, and there are oncologists now calling for it to be stopped, the mRNA technology. So there is still debate around that. And I think it's good. We need debate, but we need open debate where we really can look. The other thing is going to be cost, Nana. So we're looking with this particular vaccine at £400,000 per patient.
But surely the treatment of somebody who has melanoma and all the things that go with it is far more expensive than that. And then the cancer can return, so then you're going to be paying again.
Yeah, so this isn't going to stop the cancer in the first place. But this is after.
But once you've had it, then you can use this technology to stop it. So you'll still have to have all the treatments to get rid of it initially.
You will.
Right.
And then this will hopefully stop recurrence. Because otherwise you'd have to inject everybody in case they ever got it, and you wouldn't have any sample proteins.
Well, you wouldn't have initial DNA from... You'd need to do it.
So you've got to have the cancer to start with. But, you know, NICE guidance, which guides our money and how much we spend, puts about £30,000 on every life quality of life year saved. So whether or not this will fall into it, whether the price will come down as the research goes ahead. But certainly, I said to you in the break, we are going to have some very open and honest conversations with people and say, look, this is your NHS, this is the pot of money. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that?
And the examples you gave were...
Do you want to do IVF or do you want to stop people from dying from cancer?
I don't think most people know the answer to that, but...
It's a motive.
Depends. It's an individual thing, isn't it? If you're trying for children, then perhaps you might think differently.
It is a motive, and in an ideal world, with a money pot that was there forever, we'd do everything, because we'd want everyone to have everything. But I don't think we can. And I think as technology advances and we get things like this, it's time to have those debates.
And time-wise, if this were to be successful in terms of human trials, because I presume they're going to recruit people for trials, how long do you think it could be before we see something?
2 years of recruiting and testing, and then I think we've got probably about another 5 years. So you're looking at 7 to 10 years before we see it. But as you and I know, those years go by quickly.
God, yeah, don't they? I feel like I'm 25, I'm not. It's double that and some. It's awful, isn't it, Rennie? My neck's going. When your neck goes, you know it's going.
You just start wearing dresses like this.
Well, no, yours look good. I've got a thing going on with it. Dr. Rennie Huntingcamp, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. So there we go. So there is hope. So, you know, the trials will be coming. We'll try and keep you informed if there's any information about those on the way. But coming up, my monologue on Humza useless. Sort of tricycle that he falls off. But next, campaigner Emma Jane Taylor will be in the political hot seat to shine a light on sexual abuse in my political spotlight.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures, though, starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with the cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers. I agree. And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday, the 2nd of May,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday, the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now for my political spotlight. Now, my next guest, Emma Jane Taylor, went viral with a courageous campaign, Not My Shame. And last year, her campaign really took off when she posted a photo of herself on social media, along with the caption, "As a 50-year-old woman, I finally feel strong enough to stand up without shame, fear or embarrassment stuck to me like leeches. I've turned the tables and can confidently say being violated, mistreated as a child is not my shame." We're here to discuss her campaign, and her story with me is the founder and campaigner for Not My Shame, Emma Jane Taylor. Emma, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Nana.
Now, we spoke about a year ago.
Yes.
You were on. We had a difficult conversation about it.
Yes.
Some people may not know your story, so briefly, can you sort of update people on your story?
Yeah, so a 9-year-old child is sexually assaulted. That was just once. And then around 11, 12 years old, my father abandoned me, and that shattered my world, actually. And I think after that loss, I became very vulnerable. The memory of what happened at 9 sort of really hit home. And then I was a vulnerable, insecure child looking for any attention, anything to make me feel better. And then a friend of the family turned up. And there was a gap, and he became my friend, and it was so nice to have a friend. And, you know, he bought me lovely things, he treated me like a princess, but of course I was being groomed. And that then led to me being physically abused for about the next 3 or 4 years. So there was a chunk of my life there that really was taken from me. And, you know, as I went into my late teens, early 20s, the penny dropped, Nana. You know, I was really like, OK, this isn't right. I've been abused. But I didn't know that back then because I was a child. You know, we're not developed. And, of course, when you have something like that happen to you, you have a delayed onset of maturity anyway. And so I went into my 20s. I started to seek some help to get me through difficulties because I was suffering with dissociation, maladaptive dreaming.
What does that mean, maladaptive?
I was just dropping out. I was just not able to focus. I wasn't focusing anywhere. And OCD, I became addicted to drinking. I was taking drugs. I had OCD. I was having night terrors.
Wow.
I was being triggered left, right and centre. And you get to the point you just think, I cannot exist like this. And I didn't at that point think, oh, one day I want to be a campaigner. I actually thought, I just want to feel better than this. This isn't a healthy way to exist. I was in the... I'm a dancer by trade. I was working as a dancer, and then fitness was my business, still is. And I was like, OK, I cannot be doing this to my body. So I went on this journey of therapy. No one knew. I just ran my businesses. And then I came out the other side and I thought, actually, I feel a bit of an imposter. Here I am, you know, in my 40s, you know, everyone looks on and I've built up my businesses. And on the outside, it looks like I'm doing really well, but in the inside, I felt like an imposter. And I just wanted to do something that could help someone else. So I wrote a book, got my book published, and then lots of things started happening from there, started speaking more and more. And then suddenly I was like, right, OK, I'm going to take this seriously. I want to do something good. So I launched my charity, which has got its first year anniversary next weekend. And that's Project 9010, and that's all about giving education and safeguard training for children. And I stepped forward and I thought, do you know what, I'm going to do something that I need, which is to recognise that this wasn't my shame. So I put on this T-shirt, and as you said, it went viral, and here we are.
You're right. And also, well, you caught the attention of a great advocate of yours, Charlie Lawson, who also joins us now. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us here on GB News. So you got involved with this campaign. Talk to me about why and what you're doing to help Emma.
Well, I think, first of all, and you will know if you ever put this T-shirt on, as I did, I escaped by the skin of my teeth abuse many, many moons ago. But when I saw EJ in this T-shirt, I was very moved with her courage. Courage is a big thing for me, and it takes immense courage to put that on. And to talk about it. And it meant an awful lot to me because my wife, Debbie, was seriously sexually abused as a child. And so I've been through a journey without an end, actually, with Debbie, who is now sort of 90% control of her emotions. She wasn't when I first met her. And it knocked me sideways, but we had to learn to deal with it together. So although I have not been sexually abused, it was very close and I got away with it by the skin of my teeth. My darling wife was, and I have every respect for her, of course, but especially for EJ as well, because, you know, she's battled an awful long way to get where she is. And so I'm very proud, never mind, you know, pleased to be helping. I'm very, very proud to be associated with Emma Jane. I mean that most sincerely.
Yeah, well, that's, of course, one of the great advocates, Charlie Lawson, who's been supporting Emma throughout. So, Emma, talk to me about what you're doing now, because it's a year since you set this up. So talk to me, because it's going from strength to strength as more people are hearing about it.
We've got this awareness day next week. So we started putting this message out, Not My Shame, and a lady called Lynn, she won't mind me saying that, she put on a T-shirt, she went public and she stood by me, and then someone saw Lynn and they were like, oh, we want to get involved, and a lady called Jo came forward. And suddenly all these survivors came forward, and I felt like we needed to do something to recognise the impact of this conversation, because it is a widespread hidden horror. Child sexual abuse takes childhoods and then it affects adults for their life. And so we need to recognise that. We need to understand, we need to support survivors, get this message out, help leaders understand that this is a serious happening that is ruining lives. And if you can start supporting survivors, then you see a much more flourishing society. Therefore, then we can protect children, which is my start and finish to all of this. So we've got a ribbon day next week. You've got a ribbon as well.
I've got a ribbon, yes, I've got my ribbon.
And this is going to be worn on the 1st of May. This is going to observe the day. And it is going to be a minute's silence on the day at 12 o'clock. And that is to observe the conversation of childhood sexual abuse and also the childhoods that have been taken from this horrific abuse. We have coffee mornings. We're going to be on various radio shows next week. We've got a rock drop day. I also want to give a shout out to Henley Town Council and Chester Town Council, who are lighting up their town halls white to support the Not My Shame movement. They're also, the Newgate Arch and Eastgate Clock in Chester are going to do that, and that's supported by Samantha Dixon MP.
Emma, if people want to find out more about this, where can they go? Because we're running out of time.
OK, www.notmyshame.global. Everything you need to know is there, and everyone's welcome to come and join us.
Well, listen, Emma Jane, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so
Nana.
much for coming in and sharing your story. Also to thank you to Charlie Lawson, who's been fantastic in his support towards you. And stay tuned for us, because we've got loads still coming up here on GB News. Coming up, I'll be joined by my amazing panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer, and disability advocate, adventurer and speaker Nick Wilson joins me in the studio for my difficult conversation. Stay tuned, my monologue is on the way. Why I think that the outrage at this is completely faux.
Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures, though, starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with the cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You're watching and listening to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. More to come in the next hour. My monologue on why I think Chris Philp's comments on Newsnight have been gravely, well, it wasn't Newsnight, it was Question Time, gravely misconstrued.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking?
You're joking. Really? Seriously, it's not a wine. What is it?
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
The next winning call could be answered by you. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Meghan's launched her new lifestyle range, starting with jams. It's called American Riviera Orchard. Apparently, it's been made by organic fruits grown in Meghan and Harry's Montecito gardens. If we can believe it, I reserve an air of scepticism. But she sent out 50 jars of this jam to influencers and celebrity friends in the hope of trying to boost some sales to her product. But it's ended up winning for King Charles because fans have gone to Highgrove website and King Charles's jam has sold out.
So hang on, why did they go?
Has gone through the roof.
Why did they go to the Highgrove website?
Well, I think it's a bit of a blow against Meghan because they're saying we don't want your jam. We're going to go and get the king. So it just shows how popular the king is. This is what she's always wanted. Her dream has been to be like this Gwyneth Paltrow style lifestyle guru. She's always loved Gwyneth's website Goop. When she set up the TIG, which was her website when she was still in Suits as a working actress, that was the brand, the style of brand that she was going for, was this Gwyneth style, New York elite, very princessy. So this is her chance now by trying to cash in on her royal title, because she is now a duchess, so she's using that to try and elevate her brand. And she's really now trying to carve out herself as this new Martha Stewart.
And she's coming out with a cooking show as well on
She's coming
Netflix.
out with a cooking show, and I mean, to be fair to Meghan, she has always tried to say that she's into healthy eating, organic food, cooking, but I don't see this being a success. It just will not happen for her, because she's just burnt too many bridges. People just don't believe in her brand. They don't think she's authentic. So, are you an actress? Are you a guru? Are you a duchess? Are you a philanthropist?
Who are you, Meghan?
Who actually are you? This is what we're asking. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think Meghan really knows who she is.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza. Still to come, Yusuf has fallen off his scooter. Is he the match in the powder barrel for the SNP and Scottish independents? Later, I'll speak to a brave wheelchair-bound veteran looking to climb Mount Snowdon this year. And well, what happens next? Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Nano. It's 4 o'clock. Our top stories at the top of the hour. 2 men have been arrested at a pro-Palestine protest in London. Police say one of them was holding a placard with a swastika and the other made a racist remark towards counter-protesters. The event, which was organised by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, was calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Part of the march took it past a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall. Earlier, a counter-demonstration organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was cancelled as organisers said that the safety of Jews was at risk. Up to 50 migrants have been rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured exclusive footage of the migrant arrivals. The incident happened this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is thought to be injured. At least 5 small boats have made it to UK waters so far today, carrying more than 250 migrants. GB News can reveal that the number of people who've crossed illegally from France into the UK so far this year has now passed 7,000. Humza Yousaf is asking leaders of rival parties to find so-called common ground with the SNP as his leadership hangs in the balance. He's inviting them to talks at his official residence to see how they can work with his minority government. The Scottish First Minister says he will not resign ahead of a crunch vote on his leadership next week. Comes after the collapse of the SNP's power-sharing deal with the Greens last Thursday. More than 20 sexual predators have been jailed for exploiting young girls in West Yorkshire, involving abuse described as abhorrent in the extreme. 24 men have been sent down for a total of 346 years as part of Operation Torway, West Yorkshire Police's investigation into the rape, sexual abuse and trafficking of 8 girls between 1999 and 2012. 4 of the men received sentences of more than 20 years. A British tourist is in intensive care after being attacked by a shark in the Caribbean yesterday morning. The 64-year-old is said to be stable despite serious injuries to his left arm, left leg and stomach. The attack happened at Turtle Beach along Great Coolland Bay in Trinidad and Tobago. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the victim's family. And a gold pocket watch recovered from the body of the richest man on the Titanic is being auctioned today in Wiltshire. It's expected to fetch as much as £150,000. Businessman John Jacob Astor was 47 when he went down with the ship in 1912 after making sure that his wife Madeline was on a lifeboat. Rather than attempt to get on one himself, the impeccably dressed businessman was last seen smoking a cigarette and chatting with a fellow passenger. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Nana.
Thank you, Ray. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just coming up to 5 minutes after 4 o'clock. Oh, the faux outrage over this.
I come from a neighbouring country called Congo, if you know geographically that it's located right next door to Rwanda. And right now in Goma, there's a genocide going on, and there's such a big conflict going on with people from Rwanda. So had my family members come from Goma on a crossing right now, would they then be sent back to the country that they're supposedly warring, Rwanda? Does that make any sense to you?
No, I think there's an exclusion on people from Rwanda being sent to Rwanda.
They're not from Rwanda, they're from Congo.
They're from Congo.
And they're supposedly warring these people from Rwanda. Are they then going to be sent to Rwanda if they came here on a crossing?
From
Congo? Yeah.
Would people be sent from... Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Definitely. You're saying if they come from a war zone in Congo, would they then be sent to Rwanda?
Seriously, honestly, a loaded studio audience horrified at the prospect that an asylum seeker from the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, flees the safety of France on a dinghy, only to find that he could be sent to Rwanda, who are apparently in conflict with his country. Well, stay in the safety of France then, instead of taking a perilous crossing which you've needlessly risked your life to take, and only now, when you learn you could be sent to Rwanda, are you worried about losing it. So you're not bothered about the dinghy capsizing in the Channel, where you could die, the fate of 5 migrants this week, one a 7-year-old girl. You're worried about harm in Rwanda because you know that you could end up there if you cross illegally via a small boat under this new legislation from the safety of France. Stay in France, then. It's a no-brainer. Why would you risk your life on an unnecessary, dangerous journey where you could die if you are genuinely looking for safety? You're already safe in France. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying any of this. I suspect the real reason is this.
The only for me to claim asylum was crossing the Channel.
You did have other options?
No.
You had asylum in Greece?
I had asylum in Greece, but as I mentioned, nobody wants to live in a tent.
Sure.
Exactly. He doesn't want to stay in a tent, so he's leaving Greece. The truth is most cross via dinghy. Most of them are economic migrants. That's what I suspect. After all, they've paid over the odds to get here. Frankly, they don't want to live in tents that, get this, are provided by other European countries. Who can blame them? Hotel in the UK or tent in Greece? Let me see. Whilst Chris Philp did not handle that exchange well, he's right when he said Rwanda is a different country, and I think he was confused as to why he'd received such a harsh response and started to question his own answer. Yes, he should be aware, and he should have been aware of any conflict in neighbouring countries if he wasn't, but as Chris Philp said, there is provision for that.
A clause in the legislation that says if somebody would suffer, I think the phrase is serious and irreversible harm by being sent somewhere, they wouldn't be sent. So there is that safety mechanism built into the legislation.
Exactly. Question answered. Nobody's mentioning that bit, though. Honestly, you can't please all the people all of the time. This only proves one thing, that the Rwanda deterrent would deter people from the DRC paying people traffickers to come to the UK from the safety of France via dangerous dinghies. And in fact, I think, judging by the overall response to shut this down, Rwanda may well have the all-round desired effect of making people think twice before they risk their lives to cross the Channel from an already safe country. France. Surely nobody wants people to carry on taking this deadly route, which has proven most are economic migrants, and that it's an industry which is packed with dodgy lawyers, people traffickers and questionable charities. Andrew Mitchell, the Deputy Foreign Secretary, criticised the Lords for their objections to the Rwanda bill this week. He said some of the discussions that have gone on in the Lords about the traditional arrangements to legal arrangements with Rwanda have been patronising and, in my view, border on racism. He called the people smugglers the modern-day equivalent of slave traders. But where is the outrage from the BBC audience about the people traffickers who are pocketing billions and risking lives? As far as I could see, nobody batted an eyelid at the prospect of somebody risking their life after paying a trafficker who couldn't care whether they lived or died to come to this country. They were more bothered about whether Chris Philp knows where the Congo is. Where is the outrage for the people in this country waiting months, even years, to get treatment because our services are so overstretched? People dying as a result. What about those deaths? Many on NHS waiting lists have been on or are taxpayers who have contributed to the welfare system of this country for decades, so it would be available to them in their hour of need. Where is the outrage for the millions that we're spending to foot the bill to house channel migrants, which is eating into the foreign aid budget meant to assist poorer nations, but instead housing people, many of whom shouldn't be here at all and are economic migrants? Where indeed? Next, there'll be a wave of migrants claiming that they've come from the DRC to avoid being sent to Rwanda. Sounds to me like a lot of people are worried about Rwanda. It seems there are people in this country hell-bent on finding any way to stop the Rwanda scheme from working with no valid alternative. We cannot carry on like this. It is completely unsustainable. Unless you have a better idea, I suggest you step back and give Rwanda a chance. But before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, after the chaotic few days for Humza Yousaf, is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence? Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time. Angela Levin will be here with the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, yesterday, Buckingham Palace announced the King will return to public-facing duties next week. Then at 5, it's My Difficult Conversation. Disability advocate, adventurer and speaker Nick Wilson will be telling us his story of defying physical disability, mental illness and suicidal thoughts to climb Mount Snowdon. Now, that's coming up in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Cast your vote now. Right, we'll give you the question in a minute. But right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser.
Hello.
I didn't do the Lala. I didn't.
You didn't. You.
What happened to the Lala?
I know. I was being kind.
You'll get one in later.
I'll do it in the next hour. Lizzie Cundy, what do you think about this?
Indeed. Well, Chris Philip, what a gaffe. It was a bit toe-curlingly embarrassing.
It was a little bit.
And it will keep him awake at night, that, I have to say. And while he's awake, he could very well sort of squat up on his geography, and I think he should buy a book from Amazon called Geography for Dummies.
But
because he should know that.
You can send it to him, Lizzie.
Hold on. No. Do you not think, though, that what he was saying was a rhetorical question because everyone was sort of looking at him going, oh... And so he started saying, and he was actually telling you that Rwanda's a separate country. You couldn't quite understand what was going on.
He was kind of like thinking aloud.
Yeah.
And look, not every minister can be as sort of sharp and smart like Nigel Farage when you're live, but you should know and do your homework and be ready. I think it was a bad gaffe, and we don't want to be looking like we're being, governed by idiots.
Listen, I think his behaviour, I think it was terribly handled. But I think, in fairness, the way the question was worded was actually a little bit tricky, and he had to rethink it. He should be able to think faster on his feet. But the bottom line is, I think it was a rhetorical question. I don't think he was asking a question. I think he was telling the question and confused as to the response he was getting.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's impossible to know because when you're in a situation like that, a bit like, we do here, but at least we're not in front of the question time audience, it can be difficult. So even if we give him the benefit of the doubt, he isn't the sharpest tool in the box. He had to, he was the Chief Secretary of the Treasury and he made a few gaffes then and he got pushed out and he's been demoted, so he's now not in the cabinet level. So, you know, I mean, I think people are making a little bit too much of it, but, you know, but we do need a slightly better class of ministers. And to be fair to the Tories, there are better people in government than him, but it's a testament to their sort of dog end days that we're having, that he's had to come back having had to been pushed out once for not being too great.
I suspect he at least knows what a woman is, though.
Yes,
so does Keir Starmer now.
Finally,
I've told him that. No, he worked it out on his own.
Nana, you've made really important points. What the most important thing is that we stop this criminal activity of these smugglers who are actually making 183 million a year. We've had 7,000 boats up to date this year and 14 deaths. It is disgraceful and disgusting and appalling, and this is what everyone should be in arms about and shouting from the
exactly. See how much has they've garnered this particular situation of, oh, he looks really silly, what you said. Yeah, but what about the situation he's talking about?
I mean,
that's because if they put that much energy into the situation, because you notice when that guy was telling the story about if somebody in his family came to the DRC, it was just as a matter of fact that they're coming by small boats, as if it was just something you breeze over. And I was like, hold on a minute.
Because, well, I think the key thing, as you say, because they've to get from the DRC to the UK, you have to cross through an awful lot of safe countries, and you know the EU, you know, the EU has a perfectly sensible way of doing it. One of the reasons, of course, that people come in small boats is because we have a much higher acceptance rate of people than other countries. We have up to 60. At the moment, it's about 60% is the acceptance rate. When in France, it's about 20-something, to early 20s, and in Germany, it's in the late teens.
Well, did you see that guy though?
Third less.
Did you not see the guy on Newsnight though? Yeah. He said that he's come from Greece, so he's going to stay. He's not going to stay in Greece. He's going to come to the UK because he didn't want to be in a tent.
I quite fancy a tent in Greece, actually, in the spring, but not in a migrant camp. But what I say is, what I think is wrong is that the left don't focus enough on stopping the small boats. Now, they may say it's a perfectly reasonable argument to say you don't think Rwanda is going to do it, but we should all be united about wanting to do it. And I think you're right. Sometimes people on the left, the Twitter warriors, don't realise that there are people, you know, there are people dying in the Channel because they're getting on the small boats, and we need to do that. I'm going to say smash the gangs. That's Labour's plan, and to use anti-terrorism legislation to have a new police force. It won't be a magic wand, but it will be another try.
Shame on France. We've given them, you know, £500 million. What have they done? Absolutely nothing. It's a travesty.
And GBNews revealed this week they're going to pull people off the beaches. The few people that are on the beaches are going to be going to guard the Paris Olympics.
Well, I was going to say that. Carry on.
Difficult couple of months.
No, I'm just going to say, look, Rwanda has got to happen. It has to happen for Rishi. I mean, on my way there, I saw him with a roller tarmacking the floor of the runway for those flights to get off. Yeah. And it has to happen for his credibility as well, because we want to know what Labour's going to do. I mean, they'll be on the back foot. What are Labour going to do?
Well, they said they're going to cancel Rwanda.
Well, we would cancel. Well, the truth of the matter is the timetable means it will be impossible to tell if it's working by then. But the problem is, it's just that it's only a couple of hundred people at a time are going to go. It's an expensive waste. It won't work as a deterrent.
That's very disingenuous.
It won't work.
You don't know that, and that's not the point. The point is that we will need third countries anyway, because there will be people who come here who fail asylum and we don't know where they're from. So they'll need to go somewhere. So Rwanda is only one element, just like the policing of the smuggling gangs is one element, and it seems to be working for some people.
What I want to do, what I think what Labour's focus is, and what I would do if I made me Home Secretary, is to focus on stopping people even getting to our shores, which is why the offshore processing centres, which Europe is starting in Tunisia and elsewhere in North Africa, are actually the long-term solution. But if we can break these criminal gangs, if we can use anti-terror legislation, if we can actually do a proper deal in Europe to do that.
Yes, I totally agree. And we have to have a deterrent for them not to come over in the first place.
I agree. And
there's been another incident today in Kent. 250 people have come over once again. This has got to stop.
It's got to stop. Yeah, absolutely. I think we disagree over how to do it, but it has got to stop.
And Labour are going to be on the back foot if Rwanda that plane takes off.
I mean, I think that people think that the public don't think that Rwanda's going to work. They think it's a colossal waste of money.
I think they would like to see something happen, and they'd like to give it a chance if it does or doesn't work, rather than people
I think they'd like
you
to see the claims process, because one of Labour's key things is to get the claims process.
So we're not having
at the moment. What happens is people stay here so long that then they get the 60% acceptance rate. You need to get people to turn around, so people who shouldn't be here are sent home.
You're just saying what we know. You're not saying the solution. Listen,
I am.
No, you're not. You're just literally saying what we all know.
Well, we're not, because the government isn't using anti-terror legislation against the gangs. It refuses to do it.
Listen, the bottom line is this: we need to stop those boats. We need to stop people from coming, and that is the bottom line. So back off.
Rwanda won't work.
Back off, Chris Philp. And if Labour, you've got an option, then let us know what your plans are. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, Royal Roundup time with Angela Levin. She'll be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. But next, the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, after a chaotic few days for Humza Useless, is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independents? I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. Is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independents? Tell me what you think. gbnews.com/your say. Cast your vote now.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I don't think you can go and watch a Shakespeare play unless you already know it. It's almost like you have to understand the story and the characters and perhaps have even done a bit of reading into it. Because if you went completely blind, especially in today's world where we don't speak in that kind of way, it is, I think, probably a bit alienating.
But Dawn is saying it is alienating at the moment because of the lack of representation.
You know what, the actual phrasing they use, right, OK, the disproportionate representation propagated white, able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgender male narratives. I'm sure there's people sitting in a room going, what's the most ridiculous thing we can come up with today?
Yes.
But really, just chuck all these words at it, cisgender, and it's just insane. Of course, Shakespeare was what it was back in the day, and that's why it's mostly blokes and they're mostly white.
And lots of speculation that he was actually gay, isn't there? Because he never really saw Anne Hathaway very often and stayed away a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe he was a big
He might have
gay
been
icon.
transgender for all I know. I mean, I don't...
Biggins, I'm looking at you.
No, I think you're right. I mean, you know, I think that goes for the profession too. I mean, I do think I mean, I remember seeing Macbeth in London with Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, and it was one of the most exciting evenings ever. And it was a cold night at the Donmar Theatre, outside and inside, and that gave it atmosphere. There are certain things that you go along and see something else, and you think, I'll walk out in the interval.
Yeah. Macbeth is a sexy play, though.
Let's talk about, there's so many. Can I live to be 100?
Oh, this is depressing.
I think it is depressing. I like to stay here now. I don't want to live to 100.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm right behind you.
I don't even want to. My father died at 63. That'll be me gone this year.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just coming up to 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so before the break, we were discussing the harsh response to Chris Philp's appearance on TV. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying about my monologue. Stacey says, if you're being persecuted in Congo, surely you would go and stay in the first country you get to, which would not be the UK geographically. Exactly. Ashley says it is not just about the so-called Rwanda deterrent. We need a deterrent to stop the economic migrants from coming here. It is obscene that British veterans are homeless and on the streets, yet we put up channel migrants in 4-star hotels. Exactly. Robert says we desperately need to get out of the ECHR and create our own UK Bill of Rights. I think we have got something like that already, but sadly it seems we want to supersede and let others take over, and yet other European countries will probably ignore certain rulings. But anyway, anyhow, we'll carry on with this, and I'll keep your thoughts coming. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. After a chaotic few days for Humza Yousaf, Useless just kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence? Now, Scotland's First Minister has faced a crisis after one after the other. This was his loads of things going on with his alliance with the Scottish Greens falling apart, the Conservatives in Holyrood tabling a vote of no confidence, and SNP revelations with fellow pro-independence parties in tatters. Humza Yousaf's political future is looking very bleak indeed. But despite this, Mr Yousaf yesterday said that he would not resign and vowed to fight on. I don't think he'll have much choice. But today, he refused to rule out an early election in Scotland. Now, the SNP have had months of setbacks with Nicola Sturgeon's absurd gender agenda, putting a biological male convicted rapist in a female prison being the catalyst for her demise, and her successor failed to fix the wound. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by former SNP councillor Austin Sheridan, the Albert MP Neil Hanvey, political reporter for the Scottish Sun Lewis Mackenzie, and also the leader of the Scottish Conservatives on Glasgow City Council, Thomas Kerr. Right, so I'm just going to start with you, actually. Austin Sheridan, what are your thoughts? Is Humza, is he toast?
Well, I certainly don't think that his political judgment has been the best over the past few days. I believe he's left the SNP in a very difficult position. In terms of ending the Butte House Agreement, I don't necessarily think the problem here, if I'm being completely honest and as less political as possible, I don't think ending the Butte House Agreement was necessarily the big problem here. I think it was the way that he executed the ending of the Butte House Agreement. And the reason I mention that is because of the arithmetic of the Scottish Parliament, and also the nature of how the parties engage with each other. The Conservatives certainly won't be assisting the SNP government in passing budgets and passing legislation. The Labour Party are fighting for the same ground as the SNP on electoral terms. And at the moment, they're feeling a bit more confident because of Poland, so they're certainly not going to help the SNP pass budgets and pass legislation. Under Alex Hamilton, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, he's very much anti-SNP, so they can't really look towards the Liberal Democrat group to seek support in Parliament. So really, the only other option that is viable for SNP members would be the Scottish Green Party, because Alex Salmond's Alba Party is a party that many SNP members would find intolerable to work with. So even if Humza Yousaf managed to survive a vote of no confidence with the support of Ash Regan, and if he managed to do a deal with the Alba Party, what I can assure you of is there's many progressive members within the SNP that would find that intolerable, and his leadership would be under question from membership. So he's left himself in a very difficult position. I don't think it was necessary the way that he's handled it, and I would really question who's been advising him.
Yeah, I'd question a lot of stuff. Neil Hanvey, political reporter for the Scottish Sun. Your thoughts on Humza Yousaf?
Well, I think first point I would make really, Nana, is that you have to separate the SNP from the cause of Scottish independence. Whilst the SNP have been regarded as the main vehicle for Scottish independence over the last 90 years, that moniker is disappearing from their grasp for a number of reasons. Their mismanagement of Scottish government more generally, but certainly their continued abandonment of the cause of independence in favour of identity politics, which the vast majority of the Scottish population do not support. The other thing that's been very clear this week is that the Green Party have made it clear that their commitment to independence is a mirage, their commitment to the environment and climate is a mirage. And again, the only red line they're prepared to draw is on identity politics. So I think Humza Yousaf started the day off thinking that he was going to stamp his authority back on the Scottish government and take back control, to borrow a phrase from elsewhere. And actually what he ended up doing was making himself a much diminished figure in the eyes of Scotland and the eyes of the public. And he's completely lost control of the whole series of events since then.
Well, the Greens would argue that they are supporting net zero, though, aren't they? So they are sticking with that. But Lewis Mackenzie, political reporter for The Sun.
Yeah, I think sort of the points raised there, there's sort of a difference between
the support for the SNP, which has been falling for quite a while now, and support for independence, which has sort of remained fairly stable. So people are actually separating the two causes. So they're separating their support for the SNP as a party and how they feel about independence. So that's sort of an interesting sort of point, I think, for the position that Neil's in with the Owl Party. And obviously Ash Regan finds herself in a very interesting position now at Holyrood. And I imagine Hamza might regret having said that she was no great loss to the SNP when she quit the SNP back in October of last year.
Interesting. Well, what about Councillor Thomas Kerr?
Well, I think there's two separate questions here, Nana, to be honest with you. I'd like to think it's the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence movement. I don't think it is, though. And until we can try and make sure that we beat them at the ballot box, I'll keep fighting hard to make sure that does happen. But the issue that's arrived from Hamza Yusuf is a completely different one. He has been completely incapable and useless when it comes to governing Scotland. And we've seen that. His complete lack of judgment and how he's managed to handle this situation has been a disaster. The people of Scotland, we've seen in Poland, have already lost trust in him. And I think what we've seen last week is that the Parliament looks likely to have lost trust in him as well. So I don't see a way back for Hamza whatsoever. But the SNP is not, they're down, but they're not out. And as a Conservative and a Unionist, I'll make sure I fight hard to make sure that we fight those separatist policies as much as possible at the ballot box.
Yeah, because it does feel like... So final word then to... each of you, yes or no then. So Neil Hamby, do you think that this is the end of the SNP and Scottish independence? You can answer one yes and one no, because as you said, there are two questions. Neil.
Okay, well, no, I don't think it's the end of the SNP. There's a lot of good people still in the party, and it's absolutely not the end of the independence movement. The independence movement is strong with support north of 50%. Okay,
Lewis Mackenzie, same to you.
Yeah, I would say sort of no to both of those as well, but I think the days of Hamza Yusuf as First Minister and SNP leader are looking increasingly numbered.
Yeah, it's over, isn't it? I wonder, what I should be doing is asking you actually take bets on what day. Actually, Councillor Thomas Kerr, your thoughts?
Again, I don't think they are dead, but I will keep fighting to make sure that they lose at the ballot box. I think Hamza's days are numbered, though, and I think that we're going to head towards another First Minister that will be imposed on Holyrood. How that works out, I have no idea, because it'll be up to Neil's party, I suspect, on how that's going to be and how that works out.
And Austin Sheridan, same to you.
Yeah, I mean, the SNP and independence movement are very separate things. I think it is important, to maintain that it is a much broader church, and whether, political parties agree with each other or not, I think fundamentally, they would not agree, that our goal is independence.
So just yes or no then. So is it the end of the SNP?
Of course it's not the end of the SNP.
No, you don't think so. And yes or no to
SNP members some big questions to ask themselves about the future of the party, and I think it's healthy that we actually start to speak up and we actually start to question the direction of the party that we go in.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for your thoughts. Really good to talk to you all. Neil Hamby, Lewis Mackenzie, Councillor Thomas Kerr, and also Austin Sheridan. Thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me. Right, well, this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate. I'm asking, after a chaotic few days for Hamza Yusuf, is this the end of the road for the SNP? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lizzie Cundy and Matthew Laza, and today's difficult conversation, difficult to say, we'll hear the story of a remarkable man who is defying physical disability, mental illness and suicidal thoughts to climb Mount Snowdon. But first, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Nana. 4:31. Our top stories. 2 men have been arrested at a pro-Palestine protest in London. Police say one of them was holding a placard with a swastika and the other made a racist remark to counter-protesters. The event, which was organised by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, was calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Part of the march route took it past a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall. Earlier, a counter-demo organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was cancelled, as organisers said the safety of Jews was at risk. Up to 50 migrants have been rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured this exclusive footage of the migrant arrivals. The incident happened this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is thought to be injured. At least 5 small boats have made it to UK waters so far today, carrying more than 250 migrants. Humza Yousaf is asking leaders of rival parties to find common ground with the SNP as his leadership hangs in the balance. He's inviting them to talks at his official residence to see how they can work with his minority government. The Scottish First Minister says he won't resign ahead of a crunch vote on his leadership next week. More than 20 sexual predators have been jailed for exploiting young girls in West Yorkshire, involving abuse described as abhorrent in the extreme. 24 men have been sent down for a total of 346 years as part of Operation Torway, West Yorkshire Police's investigation into the rape, sexual abuse and trafficking of 8 girls between 1999 and 2012. 4 of the men received sentences of more than 20 years. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. See you in a bit.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles is well known for his views on climate change, and apparently he's now taking steps to make sure that his Sandringham estate is more eco-friendly. Well, it's been reported that the King is planning to have 2,000 solar panels installed on that estate, and it's set to make the estate largely self-sufficient with a supply of its own green electricity. Well, joining me now is former Royal correspondent, the absolute legend, that is Michael Cole. Michael, twice in 2 days, I feel blessed. Look, King Charles has long been talking up his eco-credentials. Some may uncharitably compare him to Greta Thunberg in a tweed suit. It's one thing, however, to be self-sufficient in energy, but got to be said, solar panel farms, they're hardly eco-friendly, are they? They destroy environments. What's your take?
I certainly agree with that. The King has indeed, as you say, Martin, and good afternoon to you, applied for planning permission. Now, this is going to be a bit of a mini solar farm, 2,000 solar panels on a site of 2 hectares. And as he has the Sandringham estate, 20,000 acres, 4 acres isn't going to be very much, and it's nowhere near where he lives at Sandringham House. Now, these things, which we're seeing on the screen, are hugely controversial up here. A monster one is being planned on the borders between Suffolk and Cambridge, and the people there really despise it. As they say quite rightly, is this grade A agricultural land being turned over to this semi-industrial use and spoiling the look of the countryside and changing it in a negative way.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday, the 2nd of May,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday, the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's just coming up to 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, what's the question? I've forgotten it now. With all this alliance with the Scottish Greens falling apart, the Conservatives in Hollywood debate tabling a vote of no confidence on SNP revelations with fellow pro-independent parties in tatters, Humza Yousaf's political future is looking very bleak indeed. So despite vowing yesterday to fight on the SNP's leader, the career is looking bad. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence? Right, so let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lauser. Matthew Lauser.
Yes. I can go home now. No, see, I think it's certainly the end for Humza Yousaf. I must try and be polite and not call him useless, tempting though it is. He'll be gone in the next few days because, at the very least, the way the maths works is that the only way the SNP can survive in government is if Ash Regan, who stood for the SNP leadership, she was an SNP MSP, she's gone over to Alex Salmond's Albert if she gives them their vote, and even then it's going to be very tough. And I suspect that secretly, behind the scenes, one of the prices will be the head of Humza Yousaf. So it's the end of the road for him, and it's very much, even if it isn't the end of the road in the next few days for him, it's clearly the beginning of the end. And because they're going to get a hammering at the Westminster election. It's just all the wheels are falling off, and the vehicle is going to come to a stationary halt very soon.
Lizzie Cundy.
Talking of vehicles, I wonder if that camper van is available for the summer, because Yousaf might need it if it's free.
For a summer holiday.
Yes, youths ain't safe. And he's not going quietly, is he? You'd think he would wave that white handkerchief and go, but he's not going to. But I will give him by Wednesday. I think that will be the end. Look, the thing is, for him, he's not popular. His policies are ludicrous. And, look at the statistics. 29% are favourable, 45% are unfavourable, and the rest don't really care or not sure. He's not popular. He's after his white rant speech was absolutely appalling. He uses minorities and the trans community as a political football to score political points. He hasn't had the welfare of the safety of women and children ever, and he doesn't pay attention to what Scotland really needs, like living standards, education, crime. He's just absolutely, as you said, useless.
I think it's the end for the SNP. It is tough for him. And the problem is he just speaks all the time like he's a primary school teacher. So he's quite sort of coherent, but it's sort of so patronising. And when people realise that he can claim the sun is shining as much as he likes, when they go outside and find it's raining, they're going to want to do something about it.
Well, Keir Starmer's having a whale of a time, isn't he? He can sit back. Again, he's like the cat that's got the cream. He's like Bagpuss. Did you ever watch?
I loved Bagpuss.
Emily loved him.
Bagpuss was one of my absolute favourites.
I hated Bagpuss. Bagpuss was really irritating.
Well, he's got 9 lives like a cat.
The thing is, it's not just Keir. Anas Sarwar, who's Scottish Labour leader, he's done a really brilliant job because the party was absolutely destroyed in Scotland. It was completely hollowed out. It was kind of hemorrhaging members and support. And Anas has done a brilliant job of leadership in getting it together. Anas has got a little twinkle in his eye, you see, he's good fun. And I think the Scottish people can see that because they're very po-faced, the SNP. They just think, everything is always somebody else's fault, and people are finding out that it's their fault. But I think if the SNP struggling, I think the independence isn't going to go totally away because it's a hardcore of about 40%
there's
of
Albert,
people.
there's the Albert.
And there's Albert as well,
and I think we could call him the new lettuce on the block, actually, because he's only just done a year, hasn't he? And he's
there are things in my fridge older than his first minister.
I think with this vote of no confidence, is the final nail in the coffin for the SNP.
Yeah. So bets on what day do you think he's toast?
Well, I've actually put a bet on it's Wednesday.
You think
I'm a Tuesday man.
I think it's actually, it may even be Sunday tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it could be.
He does it in my show. That would be excellent if that happens. We'd love that. But what do you think? Is this the end of the road for the SNP and Scottish independence? Get in touch. But this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices there. Opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Bristol?
It's a fine city. It's a fine city.
Yeah, very nice. Got a great zoo. And one of the animals there, Lee Harris. Lee, what do you think? Is this the end for the Scottish independence and Humza Yousaf?
Sadly, I don't think it's the end of the SNP and Scottish independence, but they're both seriously wounded and they won't be back on their feet for some time. But the other good news is when a leader says they're not resigning, this normally means they'll be gone very soon. And I really do agree with Lizzie and Matthew. There is a wonderfully high chance that Humza Yousaf will be gone very soon. The man is a walking disaster, hilariously slow, and polling from the great Professor John Curtis shows that he's a deeply and increasingly unpopular politician in Scotland, even among SNP voters. It's very unlikely he will survive these two no confidence votes, especially he's relying on support from the loopy Greens, who he just dumped, and Ash Regan, who he said there was no great loss when she quit the SNP. But I will say this, I wonder what Matthew thinks of this, and Lizzie. He is a desperate man in a position of weakness, who also happens to be useless at politics. So I think there's a good chance he will make huge, very appealing concessions to get the support he needs. But even if he survives this no confidence vote, it's still not looking really good for the SNP, especially if he stays in place before the election. It's been scandal after disaster after shambles.
He's a disaster, isn't he? He's a disaster. Lee Harris, thank you so much. Really good to talk to you. Thank you. That is our great British voice, Lee Harris. Always so succinct, but still to come in today's difficult conversation. We'll hear the story of a remarkable man who's defying physical disability, mental illness and suicidal thoughts to climb Mount Snowdon. But next, Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls in my Royal Roundup.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures though starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with the cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon and welcome. It's just coming up to 47 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for my Royal Roundup because there's always something going on in the royal household. And who better to delve into it than the fabulous Angela Levin, royal biographer. Angela Levin.
Hello.
Right, so let's talk about it. What's been going on with the royals?
Well, the most important thing is that King Charles, it was announced yesterday at 6 p.m. that he can now go out and mix with people outside in the daytime and actually satisfy himself, because he's been going mad just sitting in his palace and not being able to reach out to the people. He's used to it. He works incredibly hard, hours and hours. And so this means that the doctors are pleased with him so far. He will carry on being looked after and having tests and all sorts of things. But he can now get out and meet the people. I heard that it was going to be on at 6 p.m. in the morning, and I felt so anxious that it was going to be negative. I thought, I can't bear it. I was stressed, I was wrecked. And then they came through, and I was like, hooray! You know, I was so pleased they did it. You know, I think he wants very much to get on with people, and so he wanted to let them know that he was now much better.
That's great.
That's wonderful. And I think we have to thank Camilla. You know, I did my biography of her, and you can see that the personality that she's got. She coped with being called the most wicked woman in the world when Diana was still alive, but she's done everything she can to support Charles. Whatever he's needed, she's done that. We've seen that, going out, encouraging him, and we saw the picture of the two of them together to celebrate their 19th anniversary earlier this month. And you can see how happy they are and how they look after each other. So it's very good. And the first engagement that the King has is on Tuesday, going to see a cancer place where people and medics are there so that he can talk to them. And I think he will give them all hope. I mean, you know, if the King can do it, although he'll obviously get the best doctors, but he can show you and help you. And also, I think it's been very helpful for Catherine that he's done very well as well. So
didn't he give her an honour as well?
He's given her a huge honour, yes. But he's also said very formally that he will be seeing the Japanese presidents, and they will come in June, and he will be there. And he wants to carry on and do all these things as much as he can. So it's marvellous. But what was annoying yesterday was that, for me, was that Prince Harry was due to give an award to the best army person, and he chose this person, and he was wearing, first of all, they had to do it twice because Meghan was shouting in the background, which was rather funny, but he did that with 4 medals. 3 were from the Jubilees, 1 was for his going to Afghanistan. He was only there for 10 weeks, but that just about entitled him to get one. But the one for his father's coronation he didn't wear, and I thought that was such a nasty, spiteful thing to do. I mean, if you look at that, it's really shocking. However, he's probably very cross because Mike Tyndall, who is married to Zara, the King's granddaughter, he's taking over as being president of Victor's Games, which sounds to me
like he's stepping back. Harry's stepping away from
I don't think he wants to, but there's obviously going to be.
Away.
Well, they haven't moved him away, but they've put Mike in the position. Yes, very interesting.
Because he's not, even though he kind of may have was the face of it, doesn't necessarily mean that he's the person that will carry it through, especially with what they're doing as well. Maybe it's because he's said that he's now wanted to become an American sort of thing.
No, I think it's because that a lot of the Invictus Games people who've been wounded physically and psychologically feel that it's now turned into a royal family sort of thing, which they don't want, that it's gone completely away from trying to encourage them to relive in the world. And there's Meghan coming and making lots of speeches and walking in front of some of the award winners, where she knows nothing about it at all. And I think 2,000 people have stepped down from going this year because they're very annoyed. And I think that shows you that Harry can't keep having his own way, that people don't want that, and they don't want it to be all about Meghan.
And Harry, yeah, it's all a bit silly,
well, particularly Meghan, because she leads the way, she takes over, she does the speeches, he makes one short one at the end. So that's very, very difficult for them. And William, who's done his first visit since the announcement of his wife's cancer, he went by surprise to Birmingham to a school where a young boy of 12 wrote him a very nice letter, and he wanted to reply to him, which I thought was incredibly nice. But what was so sweet is that he said to all the children there, it's a place where people have mental health issues, and he's very keen on men, to look after men who have mental health illness. And he was saying to them, you must talk to the sheep, and you must ask them how they are and how they're doing. And I thought to myself, hey, this is just like King Charles, because he spoke to all the plants and everybody laughed at him. I thought, that's ridiculous. But actually, it shows father and son are closer than you would have thought. But I think it was a very positive thing. He must be very happy that his father's back at work, and so should we be.
Yeah, well, Miss Catherine, though, hopefully she's coming back soon.
We don't know. We don't know anything about her, but we are doing what she wanted, was to leave her on her own to get well without people asking rude questions and nosy questions. And I think that's the best way with her.
And briefly, Meghan and her jam.
Meghan and her jam, it's very, well, yes. This is very interesting because the Rov family are making masses and masses of money. They sell it for £3.99. She's selling it for $30.
Is she? So we've got a price.
Yes, we've got a price. And who's going to buy that? I don't think many people. And she hasn't got a CEO, so it's all stopped. It's not a big business. It's a junction. We'll have to see what happens.
We'll have to see. Well, maybe it'll come to a sort of sticky end. Angela Levin, thank you so much. That is royal biographer Angela Levin. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, my difficult conversation. You'll hear a remarkable story about a remarkable man.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures, though, starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with the cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I mean, I've still got my heating on in my house. I love it. I love the heating. But you're watching and listening to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up in the next hour for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, do you believe that Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers? Stay tuned, but coming up, I've got a difficult conversation that you will not want to miss, so don't go anywhere.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday the 2nd of May,
The people decide.
as the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast.
With the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Gloria Di Piero. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. It is 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Coming up in today's difficult conversation, we'll hear the story of a remarkable man who's defying physical disability to climb Mount Snowdon. Nick Wilson tells us his incredible journey in just a moment. Then in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, as the Rwanda plan finally gets passed into law, do you believe Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers? And in today's clickbait, what on earth is going on there? We'll bring you more of this shocking footage shortly, but first, let's get your latest news with Ray Addison.
Cheers, Nana. Coming up to 1 minute past 5, our top stories. 2 men have been arrested at a pro-Palestine protest in London. Police say one of the men was holding a placard with a swastika and the other made a racist remark towards counter-protesters. The event, which was organised by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, was calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Part of the march route took it past a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall. Earlier, another counter-demonstration organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was cancelled, as organisers said that the safety of Jews was at risk. Up to 50 migrants have been rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured this exclusive footage of the migrant arrivals. The incident happened this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is thought to be injured. GB News can also reveal that more than 350 migrants have now crossed the channel illegally today in 7 small boats. Humza Yousaf is asking leaders of rival parties to find common ground with the SNP as his leadership hangs in the balance. He's inviting them to talks at his official residence to see how they can work with his minority government.
The Scottish First Minister says he won't resign ahead of a crunch vote on his leadership next week. Comes after the collapse of the SNP's power-sharing deal with the Greens, which took place last Thursday. More than 20 sexual predators have been jailed for exploiting young girls in West Yorkshire, involving abuse described as abhorrent in the extreme. 24 men have been sent down for a total of 346 years as part of Operation Torway, West Yorkshire Police's investigation into the rape, sexual abuse and trafficking of 8 girls between 1999 and 2012. 4 of the men received sentences of more than 20 years. A British tourist is in intensive care after being attacked by a shark in the Caribbean yesterday morning. The 64-year-old is said to be stable despite serious injuries to his left arm, left leg and stomach. The attack happened at Turtle Beach along Great Courland Bay in Trinidad and Tobago. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the victim's family. And a gold pocket watch recovered from the body of the richest man on the Titanic is being auctioned today in Wiltshire. It's expected to fetch as much as £150,000. Businessman John Jacob Astor was 47 when he went down with the ship in 1912 after seeing his wife Madeline onto a lifeboat. Rather than attempt to get on a lifeboat himself, the impeccably dressed businessman was last seen smoking a cigarette and chatting with a fellow passenger. They don't make them like that anymore. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, let's get straight back to Nana.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. On TV, online and on digital radio, I'm Nana Akua. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza. Coming up, today's difficult conversation, we'll hear the story of a remarkable man who is defying physical disability, mental illness and suicidal thoughts to climb Mount Snowdon. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, as the Rwanda plan finally gets passed into law, do you believe Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers? And as ever, some of your thoughts, you can get in touch at gbnews.com/your say. So it's just coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. It's time now for this week's Difficult Conversations. And today I'm joined by Nick Wilson. He's a veteran who has overcome adversity and become an advocate for others. Just a warning for this conversation, it might contain some content that's distressing for some people. Nick served in the British Army for 14 years before leaving to set up his own business. After his time in the forces, he struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression, as well as physical health problems, including chronic spinal pain. Now, Nick ultimately suffered a mental health breakdown and attempted to commit suicide. Once he'd recovered, Nick decided that he wanted to help other people suffering with mental health issues and has dedicated his life to raising awareness around mental health and reducing stigma, especially among men. And most recently, he completed the 385 miles on his specialised recumbent trike to pay his respects to the 385 men that commit suicide every month in the UK. And I'm pleased to say that I'm joined in the studio by disability advocate and adventurer and speaker, Nick Wilson. Nick, thank you very much for joining me. Wow. So you've done a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a bit busy.
All right. Well, talk to me about you, about your disability and, of course, your time in the forces.
Yeah, so like you say, I spent 14 years in the Army. During that time, I deployed on multiple operations around the globe, from Northern Ireland to Kosovo, Iraq and Afghanistan. And then I came out a decade ago with a spinal condition, degenerative disease disorder of the spine, and basically I got 7 prolapsed discs in my spine, at my neck and at my lumbar.
Okay.
And the result of that is they rub against my spinal nerve. So I experience chronic pain every minute of every day,
Wow.
basically, and that's just got worse over years.
So is it kind of like bone on bone rubbing? And what about because in between each of the spinal, the vertebrae, you've got discs, haven't you?
Yeah, so
are they all squashed or suppressed or?
Yeah, so some of them are worse than others.
Yeah.
So my neck is the worst point, where there's 3 discs where they have no fat in between at all. And they're prolapse, they're basically bulging out, and they pinch and rub against my spinal nerve, which is where the massive pain comes from. And then in 2021, I was then diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Oh, goodness.
Which is, they're thought due to the mental trauma that I'd experienced. And fibro within me comes out as chronic pain again. So, yeah, it's every day is experiencing chronic levels of pain and trying to manage that. And I'm what is known as an ambulatory chair user. So I can still stand and I have limited walking capability, which many of you probably wouldn't even realise when you're in a wheelchair. But it's about 5-10 minutes before the pain just gets too much.
Wow. So talk to me, did any of this, was any of this caused by you being in the forces or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a war pension now, a medical pension, and the Army accept responsibility for both my knees, my spine and complex post-traumatic stress.
How did that happen then whilst you were serving?
There was no exciting impact event or anything, you know. It was creating damage to my spine, and the mentality is, for example, pain is weakness leaving your body is one of the many sayings, so you just push through your pain. And pain for me was my spine telling me that there's something wrong.
Right.
But because the mentality was always be toxic masculinity, always be strong and push through it. And that, as after 14 years, destroyed my spine.
That must be very difficult to come from such an active place to then find yourself in a wheelchair. And now I understand you attempted to take your life.
Yeah, so, I mean, when I actually made the attempt, it was in 2016, and that was the start of my whole mental health journey of trying to provide training and helping other people. But I really experienced over the past 18 months, I've been battling suicidal ideation, so thoughts of suicide, which has been brought on from, I was in this chair from 2021.
Right.
So middle of COVID. And I moved to a new place literally 2 months before COVID started. So isolation and loneliness has really gripped me. And when you are lying in pain, in absolute agony, by yourself, on your profile in bed, 18 hours a day staring at the same 4 walls, you just question why, what's the point?
What's the point, And was there anybody around you? Do you have a partner? Do you have any children?
No, I was engaged, and again, that finished just before COVID. So it was literally everything. I haven't seen my daughter for over 8.5 years.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's been a lot.
It's tough, but you are working really hard and trying to build awareness of difficulties in mental health that in particular men suffer. Talk to me about your challenge that you're about to embark on.
Yeah,
this amazing wheelchair.
Yeah. Everyone who follows me knows I love a gadget. But when I ended up reliant on a power chair, the lack of accessibility in this country was a real smack in the face. I didn't fully appreciate how bad it is. And I was still, even though I've been out the army 10 years, there's still a part of me, there's that cheeky little soldier is in there wanting to push the boundaries and do more. And so I wanted to go up Snowdon. And I'd seen some spinal charities do like a chair pull. So it's not new for a wheelchair to go up Snowdon, right? It's nothing new. But usually it's teams of 16 to 20 people. And I'm like, well, that's rubbish. Why is that the case? We should be able to do that at least with just a few people. So I went to my local engineering firm and I said, look, I just want to have something with 4 wheels, electric motor, to try and do Snowdon in. And the firm, can I mention them? I don't know.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Rock Engineering, the guy is absolutely amazing. They've only been in business a year when I rocked up. And they said, yeah, we'll do it, we'll take it on. And what they've created, it's called Rock Climber. So everyone use the hashtag Rock Climber, you'll see the immense videos. And this thing, actually, there's a video of me driving up a wall. And it is absolutely insane. And this thing will literally... We've ridden over a half-metre high obstacle. So the plan is I'll have a small safety team, but the plan is for me to go up there completely unaided. No ramps, nothing like that, just man and machine, and demonstrating how inclusive design and modern-day engineering can help to overcome accessibility, obstacles and barriers. And if this machine can get me up to the top of Snowdon by myself, why don't we have a power chair that can safely get up and down a pavement curb, which is part of the biggest problems?
Yeah, well, I think we are heading towards that, and there are some great minds coming up with great innovations that make life a lot easier. Is there no treatment for your condition that could potentially help you?
No, it was left for so long.
Yeah.
And, when it was declining throughout COVID, all primary, secondary care stopped.
Yeah.
And then because of that, all my muscles have... kind of gone out of alignment.
Yeah, they're becoming active as well if they don't
Exactly.
work,
So I now work with an amazing osteopath, Bob. He's a great friend of mine as well, and he's trying to adjust and help me to manage. But at our level, if I was a sportsman, yeah, there'll probably be some money that could fix me. But for me as an everyday guy, which actually I say I own that, I love being an everyday guy, no. So at some point I could end up paralysed. And so you focus on something that gives you purpose, you focus on helping others, you give back to your community and give back to other people, and you use that. And you use that to keep yourself going. You create those memories. I remember the show last year, speaking with Mark Dolan, when I overtook the F1 Red Bull car in a power chair. And that was last year. That wasn't on my to-do list. It wasn't on my bucket list. Never thought I'd be disabled. And now, a year later, I'm now about on the verge of taking this insane machine up a mountain. And if I'd actually acted on my thoughts and gave in to them last year at any of the points, I wouldn't have experienced any of those things. And I say to people now, whatever you've got going on, you've got to keep on keeping on. You've got to keep on going, because you just don't know what's around the corner, right?
And you're doing incredible things. Look, if people want to support you, and when is it you're planning to go on this journey?
So we're being a little bit hazy about it, just because we don't want loads of people rocking up and then destroying Snowdonia. So it'll be end of May.
End of May-ish.
But I'm all over social media, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, or disabledadventurer.com.
OK. And you are raising money, I presume, on this? Or not yet? You're not sure?
Not yet. I didn't want it to... I know.
You should do. Get a GoFundMe page or something going on and get... You're doing so much for all of it. You might raise...
So because I've got this brand new spanking chair by Quantum now, which is amazing, so my old power chair, I'm going to give it away. So they're servicing it and we're going to give it away for free to someone to help someone else. I wanted it to be about the mission. I didn't want it to become another fundraiser.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Trust me, we've got plans for next year.
You might as well, though, because then, I know you're doing a lot of advocacy for mental health.
Yep.
There's a lot you could do alongside that. But, our viewers would support you and our listeners would support you in your
And they absolutely
endeavours.
did last year.
Yeah.
And thank you for every single one of you for all your support, all your donations and all your help. Because honestly, it's kept me here. So thank you.
Well, listen, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, Nick. Really is, and good luck with it all. And, you know, when you are doing these videos and stuff, you know, maybe you can get some stuff on my show and we'll get you telling us where you are and, well, obviously not in too much detail, otherwise you will have that mad rush to Snowdonia. But, yeah, just keep us posted on what you're doing.
Absolutely will. Thank you ever so much.
It's a pleasure to meet you. That is the fabulous Nick Wilson. He's a disability advocate, adventurer and a speaker. Well, if this conversation has brought up any issues for you, you can contact the Samaritans 24 hours a day on 116 123. That's 116 123. If you just joined me, it's just coming up to 18 minutes after 5 o'clock. Still to come in clickbait. What's going on there? But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, as the Rwanda plan finally gets passed into law, do you believe that Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers?
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Cheryl Baker. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning.
When you think back to 1981, I mean, obviously the ABBA victory then wasn't all that long ago, 9 years earlier. Do you think they had a huge influence then on the sort of direction that Eurovision was taking?
Yeah, they did. They changed it completely. Because up to then, it had all been very staid and a bit posh, long frock, sticky bow ties, you know. And then they came along and they blew it out of the water. They looked so different. And they modernised it. And I think, yeah, it made a big change. Made a big change after that.
And we were watching your performance on Eurovision a little bit earlier on of making your mind up. I mean, you had so much fun, didn't you, up on that stage? Were you, in some part, inspired by ABBA?
Yes, I would say so. It was, ABBA was 74. I turned professional in 75 and did my first song for Europe, which was, you know, when they choose the British song to go forward. I did my first one in February 1976. So, yeah, it was only months after ABBA's performance that I started my own Eurovision journey. Yeah, they just changed the face of it. They changed the face of Eurovision. And if you look at what Eurovision is now, I think that all started with ABBA's performance. It made people think this is much more than just a song contest. It's all about the look. I mean, the clothes, they looked fantastic. And even the composer, or not the composer, what's he called? The conductor. He was dressed as Napoleon. It made it fun. Fantastic song, obviously, brilliant singing, but the whole look of it just changed the way that Eurovision is, and to this day.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday the 2nd of May...
The people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections. We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. Don't forget, download the GB News app. You can catch all the shows here live. So sometimes I'm watching GB News at night and the app is on and I'm watching everything and I fall asleep, I wake up, it's still on. It's great. And you can watch all the different programmes on, including mine. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you believe that Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers? Now, after a tremendous amount of toing and froing, they call it ping pong, between the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Rishi Sunak's flagship Rwanda bill finally became law this week as the Prime Minister overcame another hurdle to getting flights to the East African country off the ground. Now, after the bill was passed, Home Secretary James Cleverly and Number 10 both hit back at critics of the Rwanda scheme, saying that it would act as a sufficient deterrent and insisting that it did comply with Britain's international obligations. However, human rights and refugee charities, here they go again, have continued to raise their concerns, claiming that over 115,000 asylum seekers will be left in permanent limbo by the end of the year. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you believe Rwanda is unsafe for asylum seekers? Well, to debate this, I'm joined by political commentators Chloe Dobbs and also Kai Wilshaw. OK, Chloe Dobbs, what do you think? Rwanda?
I think that Rwanda is a safe country. I think the only grounds on which you should be criticising the Rwanda bill is simply just the cost of it. Is it worth it? Rwanda, they have, it looks like, perhaps even better law and order than we have here in the UK. We had Coco and Simon Danjuk talking to Patrick Christie's the other day, saying that if you muck around in Rwanda, there is no tolerance of it. The police actually turn up in Rwanda, unlike here. So, and they're actually considering even bringing up their kids there if they have them, because it is so much safer in their eyes than some places like London in the UK. The fears about safety with Rwanda from the Supreme Court were about Rwanda potentially having the ability to send the migrants somewhere else that could be unsafe, not Rwanda itself being unsafe. This is just all hot air, this fuss about the safety of Rwanda.
Hot air fuss about safety of Rwanda.
I'm not quite sure that's completely accurate, because what the Supreme Court did is they looked at 3 different areas, right, where Rwanda could potentially be seen as unsafe. One of them was around the human rights record, so extrajudicial killings, detainment, torture. Those are obviously serious issues. There are also asylum seeker specific issues. The processing capacity of the Rwandan government at the minute isn't sufficient to be able to process enough migrants that we would be sending them. Also, in terms of the lack of legal representation, the politicization of the courts in Rwanda, those are also big issues for asylum seekers specifically.
Yeah, but you mean that they won't be able to make the numerous appeals and we pay for it?
Well,
constantly.
That's part of it, but also everybody should have the right to legal representation. Well, I think everybody should have the right to appeal.
Yeah, but you should pay for it, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think those issues are different to the non-refoulement issue that Chloe brings up, right? The fact that you can. I mean, what we're doing, right, is sending asylum seekers to a third country. Yes, Rwanda has a history of doing exactly the same. So that is an issue, but that was only one of 3 of the issues that the Supreme Court decided on when saying that Rwanda is an unsafe country to send asylum seekers to.
Do you not think they keep putting obstacles in the way to just stop this thing from happening? The amount of people I've heard saying, oh, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. It's like, well, just give it a try.
Yeah, the question is it worth giving it a try, given that a Labour government it would seem, incoming? Are Labour actually going to continue with the Rwanda plan if we start getting the flights off the ground before the end of Rishi Sunak's premiership? So is it worth the immense cost? As I say, cost is the only sort of qualm that I have with it. Is it worth the immense cost and all these legal battles that we've been having that are actually distracting the government with focusing on other issues in the country, of which I could list for hours and hours? Is it worth it? So that is definitely a bit of a question mark. I don't think that Keir Starmer would have the guts to continue on with the Rwanda plan.
I don't think he'd dare not do it, because, I mean, it only needs to show a modicum of working, and it doesn't have to be amazingly working. And already there seems to be a little bit of... There seems to be a chink in the armour, actually, of the supposed people smugglers, and people seem concerned that there may be some people, that something might actually happen.
Yeah, so it could be the case that there's all of this scaremongering about Rwanda, but Rishi Sunak manages to start getting some flights off the ground, and soon enough we see, actually, they're doing quite well there. This is actually starting to work as a deterrent, and hence the fear about it will die down, and Keir Starmer then has the ability to carry it on. If people see that it's actually working, then maybe there'll be demand. You know, Keir Starmer will do whatever is popular. He doesn't have any particular opinions.
So true. It's true, isn't it? He'll do whatever it takes.
He's playing a very careful game, isn't he?
He doesn't have to do anything. Everyone's getting it wrong, and he's just sitting around.
Well, exactly. I think they are resting on their laurels a bit, right? They do need to make a decision about which way they want to go, and I think the Rwanda policy is an example where hundreds of millions have already been spent and been committed to the Rwandan government and President Kagame. That's not going to go away. And so what do you do with that? Do you continue with this trial? I think it was a trial of 5 years that was planned, and then review it at some gateway point. I mean, I think that's probably what will end up happening, as well as having this suite of policies, you know, the work with France, for instance, and maybe there'll be other ones in the works. But it does speak to a wider problem, doesn't it? What kind of country do we want to be?
What do you mean? We should be... We think we're better than that, sending people who've come here illegally via dinghy back somewhere else because they won't tell us where they're from.
But how do we want to treat asylum seekers and refugees when we're the country who accepted 70,000 Jewish refugees from German-occupied Europe in World War II?
Yeah, but there was we've done that for Ukraine and other places where we set up these settlement-type schemes. That was kinder transport.
Yes.
We've done lots of that, and we're always doing things like that. But when people take the mickey by getting on a dinghy, and a lot of them economic migrants getting in the way of people who are actually genuine asylum seekers, it's no good, is it?
When you look at the top 5 countries of origin for small boat crossings, number 1, 20% of the people in those crossings are from Afghanistan.
Which is the country with the worst record in the world, according to the Women's Peace and Security Index, for their treatment of women. So that's the kind of that we're bringing here.
But do you not agree that they're fleeing a war zone?
Well,
that we are partially responsible for? Number 2, number 2 is Iran.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Iraq. I mean, we're talking about seriously war-torn countries where we're quite partially responsible for what a terrible state they're in.
Women, and I am fed up of seeing story after story of illegal migrants having come here, raping women, sexually assaulting women, murdering people. We've just had the Moroccan asylum seeker who came here illegally, stabbed to death someone in rebellion to the war between Israel and Hamas.
But that's disgusting.
That didn't need to happen if we didn't allow people to come to this country illegally.
Yes, that is obviously disgusting. We've had 6,000 boat crossings, small boat crossings this year so far. Obviously, in that 6,000, there are going to be bad apples. There's going to be a small proportion who break the law. That's not acceptable.
The law getting on the boat in the first place.
Yes,
of course, it's not every single one of them. I'm not tarnishing every single one of them with the same brush, but I think it is fair to say that if you import people from a country which has a very, very different culture, where crime is much more common and poor treatment of women is much more common, they are more likely than your average Brit to commit crimes. Is that not a fair comment?
And so your answer is to send them to any other country than the UK? Is that fair?
They've come here illegally. They've come here illegally, Kai. I think people seem to forget that these people have come here illegally. They've risked their lives from the safety of France. And actually, we had one of the migrants who we had on, not on here, but I played a clip, and he was saying that, well, who wants to stay in a tent? Which is why he left Greece after fleeing wherever he was to come to Greece. He said, oh, we're going to be in a tent. So then he got on a dinghy to come to the UK.
Yeah, well, we'll give them a 5-star hotel to stay in, right?
Exactly.
But who wouldn't, in desperate circumstances, come to another country illegally? Wouldn't we?
But you've left.
I certainly would.
Northern France is not a scary country.
What, to stay in a refugee camp?
Oh, right. So now you can be picky about... Oh, I see. See, you've just literally made the point. The reason why these people are coming here, to this country specifically, is because of the treatment. We are giving people hotel accommodation, we're giving food, money, everything, more than the people who live in this country, many of whom are in poverty, and they get to the top of the NHS waiting list. If there's a problem with anyone who's come from another country, we'll treat them first and straight away. I'm not saying don't treat people, but I'm saying get your own house in order.
Job vacancies in this country are at almost an all-time high, though. We need people to be immigrating into this country.
Well, you need anyone. And you need someone specifically. Then we change our legal migration.
But that's easier said than done, is it not?
Well, that's the easiest way to do it, isn't it?
Well, exactly, and clearly legal migration is very high. We saw 745,000 in 1 year. If we keep going on that track, we won't be struggling with enough people for jobs. Britain is at breaking point. You know how terrible the NHS waiting lists are. You know how difficult it is to get a house without being a millionaire these days. The schools don't have enough spaces, and so on and so on. Britain we do want to set a good example to the world and show that we are a good country that wants to help people. But you have to look after yourself before you can help others. We can't break Britain.
Not at the expense of the British people, and that's what it is. It's an expense, and we're paying for it. But if you just tuned in 31 minutes after 5 o'clock, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Thank you very much to Chloe Dobbs and Kai Wilshaw for their thoughts. What are yours? Now, listen, we're just hearing the Conservative MP Daniel Poulter is defecting to Labour. We'll bring you the latest on this story. You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lizzie Cundy and Matthew Larser. But first, let's get an update on that with your latest news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Nana. It's 5:31, and we start with that breaking story. Conservative MP Dr Dan Poulter has defected to Labour. The Guardian newspaper has published an image of the former health minister signing his Labour Party membership form. The paper quotes him as saying that the Conservatives have become a nationalist party of the right that's abandoned compassion and no longer prioritises the NHS. Dr Poulter will be resigning as a Tory MP and taking the Labour whip until the next election. Well, obviously, this is a developing story, and we'll bring you more on that as we get it. To the rest of our news, and the Prime Minister says a recent influx of migrants into Ireland shows the deterrent effect of his Rwanda plan is working. The comment comes after Deputy Irish Premier Michael Martin said the UK's asylum policy is driving migrants from Northern Ireland into the Republic. The government wants to send asylum seekers on a one-way flight to the East African nation. Rishi Sunak says the scheme is having an impact because people are worried about coming here. Well, up to 50 migrants have been rescued in a dramatic race against the tide after their boat ran aground on a sandbank off the Kent coast. GB News captured this exclusive footage of the migrant arrivals. The incident happened this morning on Goodwin Sands. No one is thought to have been injured. At least 5 small boats have made it to UK waters so far today, carrying more than 350 migrants. In fact, that's 7 small boats, now 7. 2 men have been arrested at a pro-Palestine protest in London. Police say one of them was holding a placard with a swastika and the other made a racist remark towards counter-protesters. The event, which was organised by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, was calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Part of the march route took it past a fixed pro-Israeli demonstration on Pall Mall. And more than 20 sexual predators have been jailed for exploiting young girls in West Yorkshire, involving abuse described as abhorrent in the extreme. 24 men have been sent down for a total of 346 years. As part of Operation Torway, West Yorkshire Police's investigation into the rape, sexual abuse and trafficking of 8 girls between 1999 and 2012. Well, for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, back to Nana.
Coming up, Jacob Rees-Mogg is aggressively harassed by angry pro-Palestine protesters after making a speech at Cardiff University. Then next, we're just hearing, though, that the Conservative MP Daniel Poulter is defecting to Labour. We'll bring you the latest on this story.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Many of the people that you had invited to come and speak were people who've been elected in their own countries. I'm thinking of people like Suella Braverman. I'm thinking of Nigel Farage, who has been a member of the European Parliament, of course, had an enormous impact on British politics. And Viktor Orban, who has been elected and re-elected. Many people may not care for the Prime Minister of Hungary, but he's certainly an elected person.
And in addition, we had about 15 to 16 members of the European Parliament who were also elected, and they really live in Brussels. And you would imagine that Brussels, being the head of the capital of the EU, would allow elected members of its own parliament to have an opportunity to voice their views. So I think what was very interesting about this is that the mayors overplayed their hands, so that because they overplayed their hands, all public opinion became entirely on our side. It was so evident, so transparent, that this was really a and attempt to use the police instead of arguments to react to our conference, that it was a real direct threat, and it is still a direct threat to the freedom of assembly and to free speech.
So how do you think it leaves it? Is it more likely or less likely that there'll be future bans?
I think this was a trial run. What I'm really worried about is that if the future of democracy and free speech depends on the ruling of one judge, and you have to remember that 3 other judges ruled against us, then democracy is in big trouble. What worries me absolutely is that a strong body of political opinion amongst established politicians believes that it is okay to cancel conferences and to crush the people's opinions and prevent the freedom of assembly. Democracy actually depends on these foundational values.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. Some breaking news. It's been reported that the MP for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich, Dr Dan Poulter, has defected from the Conservatives to Labour, claiming that he could no longer look his NHS colleagues in the eye. Now, Dr Poulter has served as a Conservative MP since 2010, serving as Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Health Services under David Cameron. The Guardian newspaper quotes him as saying that the Conservatives have become a nationalist party of the right. They also put in their headline, top Conservative MP. Really? That has abandoned compassion and no longer prioritises the NHS. He has said that he will sit as a Labour MP until the general election and then stand down from Parliament. He also says that Britain needs a general election as soon as possible. Well, let's bring my panel in on this, Lizzie Cundy and also Matthew Larser. Matthew Larser, I'll come to you straight away. He's gone to Labour.
Absolutely. I was on a train through his constituency yesterday, but I wasn't responsible for the defection. So, look, I think this is great news for Labour. This will be a real boost for Keir Starmer. He's not from a sort of... The last Labour MP who defected was the MP for a very marginal Labour-Tory seat, and therefore cynics would say that he was trying to save his own skin. I think Dr Dan is an NHS doctor. I think he still does actually NHS shifts, if I'm right. Yep. And he said he's not going to restand. It's not a Labour seat, you know. So he's just done it because he cares about his country. And I think, look, whatever your politics, whether you agree with him or not about his defection, he's absolutely right that we need an election as soon as possible.
But if he says he's not going to stand anyway, what's the point of defecting? I don't get it. He's just making a gesture.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely because
he's not going to carry on, but he's just done that.
Yeah, because he feels he's. I mean, because look, if somebody like Dan Poulter thinks he simply can't carry on, he's not one of sometimes it's mavericks, the sort of characters you get in Parliament who defect. He's not. He's an absolutely mainstream Tory MP. No, I mean, he's not the biggest. No, I'm not. The Guardian's got it over the top by calling him a top Tory, but he's an absolutely mainstream Tory. He was a health minister, as you said. And if he feels he can't carry on in the Tory party, that means that just reflects that millions of Tory voters feel they can't carry on supporting the Tories.
Oh, I don't know. Lizzie Cundy.
Yeah, I've actually met Dr Dan Poulter, and my ex-husband, we opened at Ipswich Hospital a cancer unit where he was, and he is, I thought, a fantastic politician, actually, and I think it will be a loss to the Tories and again to Labour, sadly. But for him to say he can't look at the NHS the way it is, I mean, it needs to have a total reform, Nana.
It's not down to just the Conservative Party, is it? Tony Blair.
Exactly what Tony Blair did and the former governments. It needs a total transformation, reform, and the money's going into the wrong places in the NHS. Yeah. The middle management, you've got the diversity managers that are getting more than nurses.
Net zero.
And That's what the problem is. And I think he's just making a gesture and he's leaving a sinking ship, which is the Tory party.
Do you not think, Matt, that he's perhaps using this as a way of getting out of this without looking bad? Because, you know, there are lots of MPs. I try and keep myself genned up with all the MPs, but some of them arrive and I'm thinking, I don't know this one. So this guy is a new face to me, but I do my best to know all...
More people know him after his defection than before, absolutely.
Yeah, but the bottom line is this. They're all defecting, leaving the Conservative Party. I would say that it's sort of a dereliction of duty, actually, especially when there's an election coming up. Why?
Well, I mean, cynics might say that it's because he wants to be in with the party that's, if the polls are to be believed, are going to move into government. Even greater cynics would say, does he want a peerage out of this? Because it's likely that Labour will have to create quite a few peers if it gains government, because that tends to happen when a new government comes in. So that's what a cynic would say. But on the other hand, he is somebody who still does shifts at the sharp end. He's not a politician who sits just on the green benches, as Lizzie says. He's still very involved in the NHS. I agree with you about reform.
You can't just blame the Tories.
No, I think what he's doing is blaming the Tories for not having done that reform.
Let's all be honest here. He's jumped ship because he knows Labour are going to get
sinking.
Of course, I mean, you know...
And he doesn't want to have any link with them, and that's what he's done.
And to say that the Tories have become a nationalist party of the right, the reason why a lot of people are not voting Conservatives is because they're not being Conservative. So I find that's a little bit...
I think that's the danger. The problem is trying to keep the Tory coalition together, which gives you everybody from the kind of Chipping Norton set and David Cameron right the way through to, obviously, Lee Anderson's left to go to Reform. Maybe others will follow him, some of the Red Wall people who are more socially conservative. And he obviously feels he doesn't feel comfortable in the party of Suella and Britty.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you may well find that when we're in government that you have that. It becomes more difficult. It tends to be that parties that on the run-up to an election kind of you can paper over some of those cracks. But we've seen a lot of the left.
The trouble is, the reason why the Tories are in so much trouble is that they are like Liberals now. They aren't real Conservatives.
He thinks they're not liberal enough.
What he's saying is total rubbish. Because, you know, that's why Conservatives are now longer wanting to vote Conservatives. They aren't Conservatives.
Well, listen.
Wishy-washy.
Let's find out. This show is nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome some of our great British voices onto the show. Their opportunity to be on and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've got three of you even. I'm going to start with you, Julie, in Bedfordshire. Your reaction to this news. Dan Poulter, MP, defects to Labour. Had you ever heard of him?
I hadn't heard of him, to be honest with you, and like you, I do try and keep up with all the politicians and their comings and goings. But I think this really says more about him voting with his feet. I think this is Dan trying to make a statement without saying a word, almost. If he's not going to then stand after the next election, he's going to step down. He's obviously explaining to the public in the best way that he knows how that the Conservatives aren't doing what he wants them to do, that he no longer believes in them. He's moving across to Labour and then will step away. So maybe he doesn't have faith in either party.
Well, it's difficult to have faith in any of them, isn't it? Let's go to Gareth Wynne-Jones. He's there in Snowdonia. Gareth.
Yeah, do you know what? I respect the guy because, you know, he's a working man. He understands the problems we've got in the country. Nobody likes to see anybody leave a sinking ship, but we've got major problems in the NHS, and this man knows it, and we have to respect his decision. Let's not kick him. Let's be really honest with everybody. Doesn't matter who's running the country, we need a good health service, and we need people to understand that we need to get behind our doctors, our nurses, and everybody. So it doesn't matter if it's Labour, if it's Conservative, or if it's a Liberal government. We have to get behind the people that are at the coalface, and that's the doctors, the nurses, and the people that are trying to save lives in a very difficult situation that we're in. So let's get behind these people. Let's not kick him for what he's done.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I just wonder what his motives are. David in Watford.
Obviously, he's going before he's going to be kicked out by the voters of Ipswich. But if he was that concerned about the NHS, why didn't he resign months ago, a year ago? Nothing has changed, and he's not doing a great service to the voters of Ipswich who voted him in to represent them. If he's leaving Parliament at the next election, then just say, I am resigning, I will not be becoming an MP stand again at the next election, and I hope that I will represent the constituency better than I could.
Yeah, you know, that's what I would have thought. But thank you so much to Julie in Bedford, Gareth in Snowdonia and David in Watford. Thank you for your thoughts. Those are our great British voices. Coming up, my quick-fire quiz where I test the panel on some of the stories that have caught their eye this week. This is the clip. Have a look. What on earth is happening there? Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to find out.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures, though, starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with a cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 49 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. It's time for clickbait. Just take a look at this. Well, that is GB News' own Jacob Rees-Mogg being chased and harassed by pro-Palestine demonstrators after speaking at an event at Cardiff University. Now, it's been revealed that the demonstrators were organised by Marxist-Leninist organisations, calling Jacob every abusive name under the sun and accusing him of being a Zionist. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Let's go to my panel, Lizzie and Matthew Larser. Lizzie, kind of very briefly
it's
to you.
Absolutely appalling, disgraceful and unacceptable, and I'm just thankful Jacob is OK and he kept his calm there. Remarkable. But we've got to think back to the loss of David Amos. You know, we cannot have this happen.
It's the police, though, the weakness of the police.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think Rowley has to go. Too much of this is going on.
Matthew Larser.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's absolutely awful that it happened. happened. People, I don't, agree with Jacob on many things, but I enjoy debating him, and that's what university life is all about. It's not about trying to stop people speaking. So disgraceful scenes. None of them were from the Labour Party. It was all from far left groups who also hate the Labour Party.
You don't even know that, though. You don't.
No, I think they were.
You don't know that.
That's the communist flag. It's not our flag.
Well, Labour. Some people would argue Labour.
Oh, but they'd be wrong.
Well, listen, Jacob Rees-Mogg said this. It was a legitimate and peaceful, if noisy protest. The kind of university security team was exemplary, as both the protesters and I were able to give our views without fear or intimidation. The proper traditions of adversarial debate were upheld. Was that inside or outside? Crikey, he's such a gentleman.
Yeah, he is a gentleman.
A gentleman.
He is a gentleman.
Well,
Thank goodness
listen.
he's OK.
But it's time now for the quickfire quiz. It's the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting their headlines right now. I'm joined by Lizzie Cundy. Your buzzer, please, Lizzie. And Matthew Larser, your buzzer, please. Fabulous. Right, and please play along at home. Question 1. Peter Kay was set to perform at the UK's biggest concert arena, but has had to push back the dates for a second time. But which arena was it? Was it A, Wembley, B, Manchester, or C, Birmingham? I think that was you, Matthew.
C, Manchester's new Co-op Arena.
It is
What do you think is B?
But I'll go C.
You're wrong. It is Manchester Arena. Yes, Peter was supposed to perform at the Manchester on the 23rd and 24th, but then it was pushed back, and then it was the 29th and 30th of May. So that's the thing.
It's a bit like the Rwanda flights. When will it take off?
They keep getting pushed back.
Closest answer wins. To the nearest 1,000, what is the capacity of the Manchester Arena? Oh, I think that's Lizzie Cundy.
60,000.
32.
32,000. The answer is 23,500.
Bit overexcited there, wasn't I?
If only.
I got the right figures, but the wrong way round.
You did, yes,
Well
but
done.
they were the wrong way round.
But I still win, because that was
You do win.
closest.
1-1 Right.
No, 2-0.
2-0.
2-0.
Listen to heckling the pair of them. Right. Question 3. The King has at last returned to work. His medical team are understood to be pleased with the progress he's made so far. To mark the news, how many events has the King announced he'll attend? Matthew Larser.
2 that I know of.
Lizzie Cundy.
1.
The answer is, in fact, 2.
I
did 3-0. I don't think
my God, I've never known.
You technically can't win
There's a
now.
throwaway. That's what you think.
Oh.
True or false? A new blood has been developed. A new blood test, that's been developed that could detect osteoarthritis in the knees up to 8 years before the X-rays can discover it. Lizzie Cundy.
True.
It's true. Matthew Larser.
False. She buzzed before the question.
It's OK. I was stumbling with the question. You're absolutely right. Yes, the blood test could lead to preventative treatment for this. And for a throwaway point, how many 100,000 knee operations are performed each year? Matthew Larser.
220,000.
Lizzie Cundy.
I'd say 300.
You had a chance to win that, man. You've thrown it away. 120,000.
Oh, it's not my
You're getting carried away, Lizzie.
I'm getting overexcited.
Finally, question 5. More than 1,000... Salman Rushdie has just released his new memoir, giving a vivid and harrowing story about the knife attack where he lost his eye. But the question is this. In what year did Salman Rushdie publish the Satanic Verses? Was it A, 1986, B, 1987, or C, 1988? Lizzie Cundy.
A.
C.
And you're saying C. It was, in fact, C, 1988.
Did you get a single point this week, Lizzie?
I got
1.
She got... No.
No, I got that. I got the throwaway. I think she might have got the one before. You got 1. You got 1.
1 point. 1 point. Well done. The winner is Matthew Larser on today's quiz, and well done at home. Well, listen, on today's show, I've been asking... What did I ask in the Great British Debate? Is Rwanda safe? That's the question. Do you believe it's unsafe for asylum seekers? And according to our Twitter poll, 14% of you say yes, and a whopping 86% of you say no. Is it unsafe? 86% of them say it is not unsafe. It's perfectly safe. Exactly. Well, thank you so much to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Thank you so much, Lizzie. And also thank you to you, Matthew Larser,
thank you as always.
Policy advisor. Thank you very much. And as ever, thank you to you at home for your company. Up next, it's time for the Saturday 5. I'll be back tomorrow, 3 o'clock, same time, same place, with Danny Kelly and the fabulous Christine Hamilton. But I'll leave you with the weather. Enjoy.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We hold on to mixed weather conditions across the UK over the next few days. All of us seeing some rain at times, often breezy, and temperatures, though, starting to recover, actually becoming fairly warm in places during the middle to second stage of the coming week. Low pressure sitting towards the south of the UK at the moment. That's starting to throw outbreaks of quite persistent rain in across the south and east of the UK as we head through the evening into the overnight period. Some of that rain turning quite heavy during the early hours of Sunday especially. When it's towards the north and northwest, it's a clearer picture. Showers here starting to ease. We'll see clear spells at times, and here will turn quite chilly by Sunday morning. Could see a touch of frost in places. In rural spots, temperatures here locally down below freezing. Whereas towards the south and east, with the wind, cloud and rain around, temperatures hold safely above zero. Into tomorrow, a bit of an east-west split developing, some heavy outbreaks of rain across eastern parts of the UK. It could brighten up for a time across East Anglia, setting off a few heavy showers, but feeling chilly with the cloud, wind and rain here. Quite a blustery day out towards the east, whereas out towards the west and northwest, brighter skies, a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. But wherever you are, temperatures are staying pretty disappointing for the time of year. Highs of 12 to 13 Celsius, 13 in the southeast is 55 in Fahrenheit. As for Monday, well, an east-west split once again, but this time a reversal of fortunes with the east and southeast seeing the better conditions, brighter skies, whereas out towards the west some rain at times. All of us seeing rain at times during the week ahead, but notice those temperatures picking up too into the high teens or low 20s in places.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers.